Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. However you happen to be watching and or listening to this, I want to welcome you to a special version of the Gaming Circle podcast. I hesitated on the Gaming Circle podcast because this week is more the GCP, the geek culture podcast, because we're probably going to be speaking a lot more about your movies and your TV and getting into that. But you'll get into we'll get into it proper. I am your co-host, as you know, TKO Asante, K Asante on Xbox, Twitter, all the places you want to find me. And this week, because we're having such a special episode, we are joined by a special guest. And of course, the slanderous one is not here. You will most likely see an episode with him on here sooner rather than later, and we'll get into why that is in a minute. But let me welcome Mr. Joanna Dark. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm always, happy to get the invite. You did trick me by telling me that everyone was going to be here. So I wore this shirt because, you know what day is today, right? Today,
it is Sonic
those numbers went out and, he's most likely, I was going to, you know what, let me give you some moral support this way. Cause I understand, you saw those numbers and you're probably,
he's probably hurt right now. He's probably like crying into a pillow right now.
But you would think, with all those burner accounts he has, he would have been able to help,
Well, you know what though? So just for those who don't know, and if you're listening to this and or watching this, you know exactly what we're talking about. Me and Mr. Everborn Saga. Actually, you know what? Me, Everborn Saga, and Mr. Boomstick XL have a bet related to Sonic Frontiers versus God of War Ragnarok. I am in the school of thought that, hey, Ragnarok probably will win this Christmas, right? It could go further on this Christmas, right? Everborn Saga says I'm wrong. Mr. Boomstick says 2-1 against Sonic Frontier, and I think they're smoking something. But hey, that's neither here nor there.
Maybe Everborn and Mr. Boomstick got a loan and they're gonna buy all the copies and give them out during the podcast, because I don't know.
Mr. Boomstick said he bought 3 copies. I'm like, you're packing. I don't think those 3 copies are enough, my friend. You're gonna need a lot more than that. But he got his copy early, and he's been playing and he's been having a good time. I actually saw like a mini review from him, and he's been really enjoying it. I actually am looking forward to playing it myself. But you know what? Let's start at the top. Why we are here, why we're in this weird format. Let me explain it to the video viewers and the audio viewers real quick, so that you folks know. Last week on the Game Circle podcast, we did not have an episode for scheduling reasons, and the reason for that is between myself and Mr. Everborn Saga, we're all on vacation. So by the time you see and or hear this, we will be where we are. I'll be in the motherland. I'll be all over the place. We're all not where we usually are, and as such, we figured, hey, while we may not have the ability to come and jump in and do a proper show for y'all, let's record some specialty episodes. Let's record some stuff that we can then fill into the feeds, and then when you come on your Saturday and you expect a new episode, this will be here waiting for you. This, as you can see, this is the House of the Dragon episode. Myself and Mr. Joanna Dark, who has graciously agreed to jump on here and talk with me about some of these TV shows that we've been really, really wanting to get into. So for those who wanted your gaming talk, hey, you may not get your gaming talk today. I'm just warning you right now. It's on a Saturday. You may not get your gaming talk, but I suspect Living Split Screen is on right now, and they are doing great work. So please go check them out.
Yeah, they were on there they were like 8 hours last week. So
last week, that's right. So go ahead, check them out, and then if and when you've seen House of the Dragon, come back. If you want to check this out, if you haven't seen the episode yet, don't worry. At the very end, when we start spoilers, I will make it very, very clear that we are starting spoilers. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet and you still want to hear what we have to say, you can be a part of the conversation. And I'd say the last 15 minutes or so, we'll get into spoiler talk. And if there's anything we need to get out of there, we'll address it at that point. But Mr. Joanna Dark, I appreciate you being here with me, sir. Even though Mr. Everborn Saga can't be here, you got the Everborn shirt on. You can be slanderous on his behalf. Usually on this show we say what games we have been playing, but since we were actually in the movies and TV realm, let's move more in that direction. And let me ask you first and foremost, what shows and or movies have you been keeping you busy this last couple of weeks? What you been watching?
Yeah, it's funny you asked. I mostly just play games, and I
Mhm.
usually take my time watching. But I decided to change it up a little bit, and I went on a binge of watching movies because I wanted to make sure that I watched all the horror movies I could watch before October. And I gotta say,
Spooky
I was
season.
talking to Everborn actually the
Uh-huh.
night that I watched this, and it was Barbarian. Um,
Mm.
Fantastic movie. I loved it. It was one of those movies that at first I was like, I think I know what this is, and I was like, okay. But then it got to a point within the movie that it just flipped, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if you seen Barbarian?
He's been recommending that I check it out. I haven't had a chance to check it out quite yet because me and the wifey haven't had a chance to like
Uh,
be on the TV without the kids, and it seems like that may be a kids
Yeah,
list
yeah.
kind of a
No,
film.
no, no, no. Do not, and I'm gonna repeat this. Do not watch it
Do
with your
not
kids
watch it with the
unless
little ones.
you're like my sister and my nieces. My niece is about my niece is 11, but my niece has been
Okay.
watching like Stranger Things, Jason since she was like 10. I was like 9 or 10. Yeah,
Okay then.
yeah. I was like, okay. I remember I walked in and she's walking. She's watching Walking Dead, and I'm like, oh, I see you
Damn.
watching Negan and Rick going at it. I
Some
was
of
like,
that scares me.
yeah. But I'm it's funny because it reminds me of me when I was a kid. I mean, I started watching these films when I was 7, but let me not derail it.
Yeah.
I watched Barbarian. Then the next day I watched Smile, and
Okay.
Smile was great.
Mhm.
The only thing that I would say that held that movie back was some of the pacing at points that could have, I guess, given it more of the scare and the more of the unease. It was a very unease movie because of the fact that, and I'm not spoiling this, you've seen it in the promos. I told my wife, when I watched it, I said, I told her, what if, you woke up in the middle of that and I just smile at you? And she was like, why? That's really creepy. And that's the unease that you get from this movie.
Uh-huh.
Great movie. Again, another great one that I recommend. And then we were just talking offline. I've never seen, yes, this is it right here. So
Mhm.
if you've seen It Follows, I don't remember if you remember that movie.
Oh yeah.
This has a similar premise, but I'm not going to give that away because it's part of the plot. But if you
Mhm.
watch It Follows, it has the same kind of tropes in the sense of the overall thing that's happening in the movie.
Okay.
But it was really good, and I was just even towards the end, what I thought was going to happen with this whole thing going on, it took a little bit supernatural, but overall, really great movie to follow up with Barbarian. Then I went and started watching The Terrifier 2, which we were talking about offline.
Mhm, mhm.
So I've never watched the first one, but I'm a huge fan of slashers like Jason.
Okay. Yep.
And Terrifier 2 is about Art the Clown. And it's this clown. And the best way to put this movie is that it's very gory in the sense of like this guy, Art the Clown, executes people to the point of like beyond. It feels like, when in GTA, when you used to get in the car and you run over the NPC like 10 times just to kind of
Mhm.
see the different type of physics and trying to break the game. This
Mhm.
movie is just very low budget, but kind of harkens back to that 80s type vibe where you have, these young kids and everything. But the violence, Jesus, there was this one scene which I'm not going to give away. He was done. Like, if I was Art the Clown, you come in, you take this victim, and you're done. No, he came back and he made sure, unlike any other horror movie, he made sure that person that he took was done. Like, like she was, this person wasn't going to come
Double
back,
tap, just
take a
just to
shotgun.
double check.
I made sure you're done so I can continue my killing spree. Really great movie.
Mhm.
Has a a cult following, and I'm excited to watch the first one. Um, then the other final movie that I watched this week was VHS 99.
Oh,
I'm a fan of
wow.
that.
That's a classic. Yes.
Unfortunately, with 99,
Mhm.
it fell into that kind of like annualization of a movie, kind of like Saw kind of became at one point,
Yeah.
or Leprechaun when we got Leprechaun in the Hood,
Mhm.
and it just wasn't. The first one started out great, but it's funny, right? You would think these movies have been successful, but it just feels like the budget has gone down, and with the budget, sort of the creativity went down, along with some of the what made the first two, I would say, sort of special.
Mm.
But that's kind of what I've been watching overall, besides House of Dragons, and I also finished finally Moon Knight,
Oh, nice. Nice. I
and
like that. Yeah.
the last thing was the Sandman. I don't know if you watched that.
Oh yeah. I haven't finished the Sandman.
Oh my God.
Give me a broad strokes of the Sandman. I started it and I was like, I've read the book.
Yeah.
I've read the book. I know the book. I know the. So it was the idea of how they're gonna adapt this, and they really went like literal with it, right? And I
So
was very surprised that they went literal with it, and I didn't finish it for some reason. I think something maybe may have come and
in
taken my attention away. What did you think? You finished it.
oh
What are
my
your thoughts?
God. So I kind of got into the Sandman via reading the Hellblazer comics because I'm a huge Constantine fan.
Mm.
Hellblazer was kind of John
You're a
Constantine.
huge Constantine fan. So now I have to stop and derail and go, please tell me you've watched Constantine with Keanu Reeves. What do you think of Constantine, the movie with Keanu Reeves?
That's my Keanu. That's my Constantine.
It is the greatest film that no
Yes.
one ever watched.
Thank you.
I love that movie with all of my heart, the
And
entire heart.
and
I love
I
that
just want to
movie.
say this, Asante, because I know probably Crazy Lou and
Mm,
probably know Sour Blow will be watching,
okay.
especially Sour Blow.
Okay.
We're saying it here right now. Keanu
Shout out
Reeves
to
is
them
our
too.
Constantine. There we go. I
Yeah.
said it here. But
Shout out.
Sandman,
Uh-huh.
I followed this project for years, and I think it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt who was supposed to direct it and actually act in it as Morpheus.
Wow. That would have
This
been really
movie,
weird.
this movie was in limbo forever. I,
Yeah.
I I never thought this movie, and when I finally heard that it was picked up, I said this probably just going to be one of those where they just cash it in just to put it out and say it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched the first episode, but not even that fight, and this is not a spoiler, this is just keeping it broad with the
Okay.
devil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the way that played out, where it was just so, I was just like, the cinematography, the attention to detail, just, it's a, and again, Stranger Things, right? There's a lot of great movies on Netflix, but Stranger Things has that big budget, like, hey,
Yeah,
CG.
Stranger Things has a little bit of a special thing to it.
and
Absolutely.
and
They pull out all the stops, if you will.
And to see the level of most likely what this cost to make Neil
Mm-hmm.
Gaiman's kind of like world, because
Yep.
that's the thing about this movie is how do you translate a lot of these things that need heavy CG into the world? And I just love the actor they picked. I love the
Yeah.
characters,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
world building. I just think every person that they pick depicts that world perfectly. And
Yeah.
I'm excited that it got picked up for season 2. Um, and yes, right there, Lucifer, that
Mm-hmm.
fight, and I was just like, wow. And even the ancestors of Constantine that's in there, I think they did. I think, like I said, I hope that this is a show that continues and people watch it. Please watch it.
Yeah.
And it gets a third season. You know what? I'll call it a W if it gets 3 seasons.
It's hard. It is really hard fantasy. And they don't shy away from just like taking it there. And I'm not sure that it'll be everybody's cup of tea, but if you like it, if you spend a little time with it, it is very special. They've done a great job. Usually, as I've seen it, production studios don't go this far, and if they take the source material, they turn it into like, oh well, the source material is more a guide than anything else, and they'll like make it conservative, and but this is just straight source material, very well realized. It's a very interesting film.
Did you ever
Show, right?
see or did you ever read Conan the Barbarian?
Yeah, of course, yeah,
So remember Solomon Kane?
hmm
Loved the books.
yeah.
And when they finally made a movie, I was so disappointed.
Yeah, because they always dumb it down and make it stupid.
And and if you think about it, Solomon Kane is sort of with The Witcher in a sense,
Yeah.
with who Solomon Kane is, the character, who he's
Mhm.
trying to fight, and so forth.
Yep.
So this, like I said, chef's
I
kiss.
mean, look at the X-Men. Any X-Men movie until the year of our Lord 2022 that we're in right now has always been a dumbed down, ridiculous, like, Days of Future Past notwithstanding, because I
Oh
think
my
that
God,
Days
look
of
at that.
Future Past was the only one that may have threaded a different needle that I actually enjoyed. The others were all sparks, but none of them really reached their full potential.
But I'm glad they made this a TV show, because then we don't suffer what happened, which I still think is a great film.
Mm.
And it's a miracle that happened, which is Watchmen.
Oh
Taking
yeah.
the history of Watchmen and what they did with that just in a
hmm
movie, was impossible, but they pulled it off to an extent.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. I agree with you. I do. Watchmen, believe it or not, Watchmen is one of my favorite like adaptations. Even though like the Zack Snyder version, even though people are like, oh yeah, they say what they will about it, and that's fine. You can, some people like Zack Snyder. Some people think he goes too far. He goes overboard, which he
I
tends to
think
sometimes. But I still think that his work specifically on Watchmen was just perfect. I
I
loved it.
think Zack Snyder, on the subject of it,
Mm.
he is what I would call, if somebody asked me, I don't know how to make movies, but if somebody had to make your favorite, if somebody told me, hey, go make the Metal Gear movie,
Mhm.
I would put everything down to the DARPA chief, down to like Snake making his weird things, because I'm a fan. And I
Yeah.
feel sometimes his movies, he needs someone else to come in, kind of like a Kojima,
Yeah.
to kind of say, okay, let's get these ideas, let's
Yeah.
condense them a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me tinkle it. But
What you're reminding me of, right? You're reminding me of Slow-Mo Backslap. Shout out to him. He always says it. Don't go full Kojima. You have to go somewhere, and then somebody has to tap you
I'm a
back down.
Kojima stan here, but I understand where
Don't go
people
full
come from.
Kojima.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where
Mhm.
Snyder, amazing cutscenes. Now that Man of Steel was announced,
Mhm.
I want James Gunn to bring him in to do the choreography for the
Mm.
fight scenes. After watching the behind the scenes of what he put the actors through
Yeah.
before they get the wires and do all the fight scenes, I think he does great. I think he does great also environmental storytelling. Because Sucker Punch was another great movie that
Mhm.
I've and
I actually love Sucker Punch. I thought
yeah,
Sucker Punch was really good.
I
Yeah.
I just feel he needs someone to write it,
Yeah.
so it's not 7 hours.
True, true. So what did you think of Watchmen, the TV show?
Oh,
Lindelof's
I
TV
am
show.
so sad that it's not coming back.
It was so good. Oh
Yes.
my God, I'm
Regina
so
King,
upset.
let's go.
Boss. It was absolute boss. I cannot believe they did one season. People were in love with it and they went, yep, we're done. One season. We're no more.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
that's a show that I'm like, I can't believe with what you did here, you cannot go back and
You can't keep
execute.
going. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's sad. I mean,
Yep.
if you look at it, I was my wife works in marketing and we talk
Mhm.
about stuff, and I asked her, how come some of these shows, she's like, well, think about it, a lot of the shows that are out there, like cop shows, shows, they're cheap to make.
Mm.
Not that they're bad, they're just cheap to make.
Yep.
So one of my favorite shows that got canceled, unfortunately, because it was before the Netflix time, was the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh boy. See, you and I are kindred spirits, bro.
Oh
I
my god.
loved the Sarah Chronicles with what's her name?
Summer Glau.
With Summer Glau. She's freaking
Oh,
brilliant.
I,
Every movie she's in, every show she's in, it's
sh-
worth watching because of her. She's
that
brilliant.
show on
Yes.
Fox, I knew was gonna die because of being on
Yes.
Fox.
Because
And
yeah.
I wish there was an Amazon, a Netflix, and Apple to pick up that show. I
Yep.
watch it over and over. I
Yep.
got the series. I had my mom send me the files because I was deployed at the time,
Mm.
and I watch it over and over because I'm a huge Terminator fan as well. And I was like, man, right at the cusp of like everything going down, just
Yeah, right. It's the worst. That is the worst with TV shows. So okay, and we'll move forward with other shows we're watching. But let me give you a bit. I am exactly the way you are with like getting upset because at the end, right when they build to that big crescendo, if it happens, the marketing doesn't work or whatever, boom, it's gone. Right. I love UK shows because of that. UK shows, every episode is the greatest episode of that show you've ever seen. It's almost like they take every episode as its own movie.
Luther.
Oh, bro. It is every single episode is an event. You leave satisfied. You don't go, well, maybe one day it'll all come together. No, every episode comes together. Even though there's some threads still hanging, you're still like well fed. You're like, yep, I'm done. And then you move forward.
You ever
British
watched
shows?
Utopia?
Yes. Mhm.
I was so angry when they destroyed the American version.
Yeah. 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 So yeah. And I've asked people why that is, and it's because American shows always start with the marketing, and the UK shows always start with the show, and then the marketing is a secondary thought. So the UK
Interesting.
shows will build the whole show, and then they'll cut pieces out They'll cut out, commercial breaks because, we need commercials, right? Whereas the American shows will build the whole show around the commercials. That's the reason why one season of an episode of a show, one season of a show will be like 16 episodes. Whereas in the UK, one season of a show will be like 4 episodes.
Yeah.
They don't need to keep you stringing along.
Remember how long we waited for Luther to come back and they finally picked it up? And it was just like, when is it going to make this? Technically,
Sherlock, same thing. Same thing with Sherlock.
Yep. Utopia season 3. Technically, Utopia is not canceled. It just hasn't come back.
It's just in the ether. There was this show way long ago, a UK show, that was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's called Hyde. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I watched
HYDE. Yes. One of the greatest shows I have ever seen in my freaking life. Like, every episode is just balls to the wall. Oh my God, what a movie. And then the next episode is another movie. And I think it was like 5 or 6 episodes, and that's it. They never did another one ever again. And I'm just like, if America did half of this stuff, like putting the shows together the way they are, man, we'd have way better shows. I love American shows, but they're like 19 episodes. And then the very last episode is where you actually get anything of note. They've been stringing you along forever,
Well, let me ask you this, right? Do you think the Sandman is sort of like you were saying, a British show or European show where there hasn't been much promotion because it's not known, but now through word of mouth, and now they're trying to promote it even more?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And based on the show itself, obviously the show comes from an author that already has like the source material, but they don't seem to be stringing you along either. They seem to be dropping nuggets in every episode. There are more episodes, but I've always been of the school of thought that, because commercials are so prevalent and that's where the money comes from, everything is about that. It's servicing that commercial. And Netflix have kind of gotten away from that, right? I don't know if, and I thought that Netflix was doing their shows because in different regions, they won't be Netflix shows, right? They'll be normal TV shows. So you'll even notice that in certain Netflix shows, you'll see commercials also still built in. They won't show the commercial on Netflix, but you'll see, if there was going to be a commercial, it'd be here, It seems like they are doing that for some shows, but big shows kind of like what we're talking about here, like Sandman, it seems like they're sticking with the creative aspect rather than, the commercials are here and there. I like the way they're focusing on that. Let me quickly ask you before we move forward. What is your stance on binging versus week to week? Because I know that's been a hot button.
So I'm going to answer this question because, I know this is an ongoing thing with many people. Randall Thor 19,
Paris. Yeah. He's going on and on with Paris all the time about.
I mean, if Paris tunes in, I'll tell you right now, I want to see the show in one shot. And here's to me, again, I get it, right? Getting an episode once and then waiting till next week, you're like, oh man, I'm hyped. I'm coming back to see it. But if it's something like the Sandman, right? I want to be able to just sit down and watch this and be like, oh my God, and not have to wait so long to go ahead. I mean, I get it. And there's another aspect to it that maybe some people choose to, because it gets to, if I watch it today, Sandman is the topic of the week today. If I do it like, say, Disney or some other ones that are doing it, I'm the talk of the week every other week, and that promotes that's a way of promoting.
That Disney that Netflix doesn't like, all those week to week stuff. You always keep getting more and more of that conversation. They're afraid that they get one big hit, everybody watches it, the bingers binge, and then they move forward, and you never get another hit.
My thing is, things leak now. Look what happened to House of Dragon, right? That we're going to talk about. That leaked. My thing is, just like a good video game, a good show or a good movie will always have conversations. I mean, I remember what was it? What was that horror movie that was about? It was a Japanese movie about some type of virus or something. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, I know what
you're talking about.
Yeah. It won an Oscar. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I never watched it.
Parasite.
Yeah, Parasite. I didn't hear about this movie. My brother-in-law, who we talk a lot on the side, and we kind of say, hey, what are we going to watch? And we kind of share things. This movie was out for how long? And people were talking about it. I just think if you put good content out, you're always going to have that conversation. You're always going to have those things. I just prefer to watch my things, and I don't think there's a perfect answer to that. I just look at it from, I guess I can look at it from my perspective. If I can get it right there, I'll watch it. Um, and then there's the other thing where, if I just, if I don't have time, I can also be like, okay, I don't feel like I'm not in the conversation either. Meaning, as parents, right? I'm a
Mhm,
parent. Sometimes I don't have the
mhm.
time to binge 8
Yep,
episodes in one night. So
true.
I do like the fact that, oh, hey, next week on House of Dragons, I don't have to worry about everyone on Twitter saying, "Oh, did you see this?" And I'm just like, okay. But again, I'm not that important, so I don't get anything spoiled. But no,
No,
I
I hear
prefer the
you, bro.
binging. Netflix got me into binging,
Yeah.
and I just loved it. I think the only time I hated it was Castlevania because it was really.
Mm.
I loved Castlevania, and you're like, really? I'm gonna have to wait like 2 years for the next season. How about you?
Yeah, see, I miss the choice. I like having the option to binge if I want to. I hate the idea because it like it seems like the platform that the whole ecosystem was built in old school between commercials world, right? And we've
Sure.
through the internet we've broken that model, right? It's no longer with Netflix and all this other stuff. It's no longer beholden to your ads to do that. There's other ways of monetizing, right? So with that, with that now established, with that world where we are now, whenever I'm faced with a show that's 30 minutes, you know, well, actually 27 minutes, if you will, because they take commercials, 27 minutes, and then and then next week, I'm just like, have you not been paying attention? Welcome to the world where in 2020, what network is your show on? Who even knows what a network is anymore? Like, get out of here with that. So although I completely agree and I understand why there's a need for either or, because there's a good business case for either or, right? Like you're saying, Disney Plus gets that hit multiple times, right? Whenever the show was going on, every week there's more conversation that helps them, right? Netflix, although they have great shows, it's like it comes out. Stranger. That's why I think that's why they released Stranger Things in two blocks. Probably because obviously because they want to
Can I ask you a
film them
question while
both.
you're on that real
Mhm,
quick? That since you were saying something interesting, do
mhm.
you think the week to week and also on the Netflix side, right, is a lack because you were just saying, right? Is it because they can't make these shows fast enough that maybe you have to stretch out certain things? And what happens is you then get filler content that may not keep your subscribers. And I want to hear your point on that.
You make a great point. You make a great point because once we've broken the standard rules of, oh, there's a season, because what's a season once you don't have commercials and ads and a network anymore? What's a season? It could just kind of keep going. You don't really have any rules that govern it, right? But to your point, because even though we're breaking the established norms by having bingeable content, that also then means, okay, they binged it. It took them a week. Where's more? Right? And then you got to wait 3-4 years for them to make another episode. So
To add
I
on
do.
to that,
Go ahead.
okay, do you think to add on,
Mhm, mhm.
do you think what Disney's doing with those Star Wars shorts is a smart way to give you breadcrumbs of content that keep you enticed to whenever that everything, but keeps you in kind of like feeding you?
That's yeah. It to me, it's honestly seems like like Disney Plus is doing the best it can in this world because it's just got so much content and there's just got it has so much it needs to feed that they are able to make those do those experiments to see, hey, we want the long form stuff, but we also want to be able to give people the small little bite-sized content to keep them satiated while we work on the next season of Andor. We'll say, well, obviously, Andor won't have a next season because we all know how it ended. Spoilers for Rogue One. Watch Rogue One. It's one of the best Star Wars movies
It
ever.
is. It is.
Needless to say, by the way, have you watched Andor? You should watch Andor.
No, no. I'm gonna start it
You
again. Remember,
need
I
to
like
watch
binging.
Andor.
So now
Yes,
that it's done,
yes.
I did the same
That
thing with all the
show,
other shows.
that show is a binge-worthy show.
Yeah.
That is, I think that, and to our conversation about whether we should binge or not, I think it's on a case by case basis. And some shows just beg binging, whereas others you kind of want to give it room to breathe, think about what was said, what was done, and then come back to it on another time. You know what I'm saying? I think both options should be available. What do you think?
Here's a good question though. how do you provide that? I mean, okay, you can let's talk, right? You can say, do you pay a premium to unlock it? But then how do you stop people from leaking and
Well,
getting
see, that's
spoiled
the
on week
thing.
to week? There's not
Yeah.
you
There's
can't.
just no way you can do that, right? There's just no way. You have to just be you as a Netflix or Disney Plus have to be okay with the idea that yeah, you'll lose the zeitgeist after a week if binging is an option. You'll
So
just lose it. It is what it is, you know?
we were on the subject of those little shorts.
Hmm.
Remember how the CW and other networks used to be like, well, hey, you're watching an episode of whatever, The Flash or Arrow, but
Hmm.
hey, if you go on your mobile phone, you can watch like an ancillary story.
Yep.
What if they provided a way like this, like shorts, where hey, you're watching Sandman,
Hmm.
but let me give you small adventures while you wait for the next episode of the world of Morpheus and the rest of the dream world.
You
Would
know,
that be a way to kind of give you
I
appetizers for the
do
next?
I do think that's a way forward, but I think Netflix specifically has a different plan
Sure.
because they go, "Oh, you like this show. Let's show you this show while you're watching. Oh, you're done. There's a movie and or game about it. How about you go play that while we're busy making another episode? You know what I mean?
I mean, it's true.
Mm,
Watching, I'm probably gonna go back
hmm.
again after beating when I watched Last of Us on January 15th. And I'm gonna
Hmm.
go back and replay the game for like I don't know what time
The
because
billionth time, yes.
I watched Cyberpunk, right? I watched the
Hmm.
Cyberpunk the
Edge
anime
Runners, yeah,
and Edge Runners, and I was like,
great,
yeah,
great
this is
anime, yeah.
this is the reason why I love this game
Hmm.
originally,
Yep.
and I just want to go back into this world and just literally get more of that story. So I
Hmm.
do think you're onto something. So we can see most likely a future where there's a watchable interactive media
Yep.
with more that you interact through a game, and you're like, okay, while I'm waiting, I'm going to jump into this world now and try to play it.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I completely agree with you. And me personally, I think we should like I know the monetary and I know the business cases change things left and right, but you can't put you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Binging is now here to stay,
It
right?
is.
And depending on your show you make, it's either very ripe for binging or it's not good for binging. And people should the the producers and those who want like uh, uh like a longer tail in their conversation should then cultivate their show to then be more of a week to week show versus the bingeable model because you can't just be like, well, we're just not going to let you binge it because binging is here to stay. Just makes your show not bingeable. That's it. You know
You,
what I mean?
you mentioned, another good point as we're talking about this about
Mm.
how Netflix and all these streaming were built on an old model that now it's
Hmm.
this. Do
Hmm.
you think that just like, and again, because we talk about gaming, right? Do you think that hopefully as we're moving forward and we're trying to see the habits of, people that watch, there'll be a much more newer, mature pipeline that eventually allows them not kind of to throw away that old model and provide in what we are today, where we just want that constant gratification over and over, kind of like that carrot at the end of the stick.
Yeah, I think, and if you look right now today at what do you call it? Networks are today. They are a shell of their former self.
Of
They
course,
used to be the big gorilla in the room, right? Back in the day, people you just like digital versus physical. People used to like put timestamps based on well right now cable versus online only is 20% versus the networks, which are like, hey, that is so upside down now. By and large, cable networks are just like completely, they are at a place in that they realize an existential crisis. We will not in the next generation, there will be no such thing as networks. Oh, where's your show on? No one will know or care, right? I'm from a world where, oh yeah, that's a CBS show. Nobody knows or cares about that now, right? So to your point about how this will be in the future, as we keep going forward and forward and forward, and if the networks aren't able to claw their way back to relevancy and bring you back to the networks and cable programs and whatnot, they're gonna have to adapt. They're
but
gonna have to pivot.
I think it's hard also for networks because when you look at censoring of content,
Mm,
when it's funny when I turn to TNT, they always have a censored version of a show or a movie, and you're like, okay,
Where
so
would that go when
and
this
and and
happens, right?
and that's another disadvantage because how can they adapt if they're censoring? I mean, again, I don't work in the TV space,
Hmm,
but I'm
hmm.
thinking if I can still access the same movie that you're censoring over on Netflix or any other service that you want,
Full bore without any,
yeah.
like, rating systems become weird. Like, lots of things become weird
And
when we
do you,
break
do
the
you
standard model. You know.
And do you think maybe they do that because, again, every company has reporting, everyone
Hmm.
has statistics, and
Yep.
maybe the demographic that's looking at this are like, okay, as long as we hold this demographic, we're going to make this content censored. So, the parents or,
Hmm.
the grandparents that have their grandkids come over can still watch this content and not be like, oh my God, or
Hmm.
complain. Or maybe some older folks that just don't want, people in general don't
Yeah.
want that type, would like a little bit of censorship with some of the stuff they watch.
Hmm. No, I agree with you. I do. There is always going to be like a hearkening to the old school because the old school exists. But I do agree with you that we will see a world where all those old ties that bind no longer really bind anymore because there'll just be no use for it anymore. There'll be a world where, you know, like your grandmothers and stuff will remember the days of cable subscribers, right? At that point, it won't even be useful or necessary for anybody to keep those old paradigms because they no longer exist. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's super interesting where we find ourselves now, where it's like, your cable companies are trying very hard to stay relevant, but realistically, no one even needs to know who they are and what they do anymore. Just providing my content. It's called this. Where is it housed? Who cares? It's here. I hit play and it's playing. You know what I mean?
Plus, also the budgets.
Yeah.
You look at what we used to be used to, what we're used to on TV, right?
Mhm.
These really bad costumes, bad CG. It was funny. I was watching something the other day, and because the Flash had cut costs on the show, remember the episode with King Shark?
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that the Flash, because they had enough money just to animate that shark,
Mhm.
they had to make it where he can just talk him out of a fight because they could not do a fight scene to animate the actual CG. And I was like, it blew my mind.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
that is true, right? Because the CW really had zero, like, even their normal budget, like their CG budget was like, my first CG.
yeah. So
Anybody can really do it at this
you're
point.
constrained by that budget
Yeah.
compared to I go on any other service and I'm like getting quality, Hollywood type experiences
Mhm.
compared to what I could get on, 8 o'clock TV and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, all right, all right, all right. So this has been a great conversation. Let us move forward.
Yeah.
Let me quickly mention what I have been watching. It's absolutely trash. It is trash. I know it's trash, but I'm committed.
Sonic
I've
2.
watched it from no,
I'm joking. I
stop it.
love that movie. My kid watches it every day. I just had
Yeah,
to
my
do it.
kids watch it all the time. I almost know all the words in that show now at this point. But what I will say, I have been watching, and no one talks about this show. Probably for right reason. I know it's a trash show, but I still enjoy the hell out of it. Pennyworth. Have you watched Pennyworth?
I have not.
I love
Is that
Pennyworth.
the one with Alfred? Right?
Yes.
I haven't watched it.
2019, Alfred Pennyworth. It's basically how he became Batman's butler,
Oh
right?
wow. Did he go
And
to
it's just
school?
crazy weird, like it is a show that is, it's almost like,
Is it like Gotham? Weird?
no, it's Gotham, but not. I've seen Gotham, and Gotham was not good.
No.
Gotham was not
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. People keep
No,
telling me, "Oh, you didn't it was terrible."
Gotham was not good. This show is this. I will admit, this show has some Gotham things in it, meaning they're trying to remind you, hey, this will eventually be the place where Batman lives. You know what I mean? And as such, they give you the beginnings of what will one day become Rogues Gallery. You know what I mean? Same thing like Gotham did. They went too far in the, well, we're showing you Rogues Gallery without them being Rogues Gallery, right? And here's Batman walking around at like 7 years old. How the heck is he going to grow up to fight these guys when they're already running around? That's Gotham. This one, it's very much like it's a stylized world, and it's very British. Like British humor, everything they say has a very British kind of like connotation to it, and they
Sure.
lean very, very, very hard on the Britishness of it. I got that's the best way I can describe it. And it's very tongue in cheek. It's very, the man lives with his mother, and his mother keeps hiding his guns. His mother doesn't like that he's doing the job that he does. He's basically a fixer. And his mom doesn't like that he's a fixer. So every time she hides his guns, and he has to go find his gun in the chimney. It is a very interesting. I love the dialogue, the moment to moment. It's very interesting. Although it's a very trashy show, because as a Batman show, it's like you can very much see where, since they couldn't lean heavy on the budget, because if you think of a Batman show, you want whiz bang, you want magic, right? You
Remember
want
Supergirl when they couldn't put Superman? It was just like a CG shadow.
you want magic,
Yeah.
absolutely. But the thing that I like about the show is, since they can't do that, since they can't do cowls and smoke bombs and whatnot, they then went to character development. How can this guy basically raise Batman? He must be the most swaggerific, crazy. He has had the most insane adventures of any human being on Earth, to the point where it just goes completely left. And
you might as well be Batman, right?
Yes, it is unabashed. But he's not cowling. He's just a guy. He goes and he does crazy stuff, and it all just works out. Like, it's a very interesting show, and I can't stop watching it. It's very, very interesting.
Not to derail as much as we do other shows,
Please,
but I just can't get behind a lot of these shows with these ideas, because it's the elephant in the room, Batman or Superman. It's like, these villains existed because Batman was there. They were just regular people prior to that. And it's just hard to watch something, even when I try to give Gotham, because again, I like comic books and all that. It's like, no, the elephant in the room is Batman. Like, are you gonna, I don't want to know.
It's surprising, because Batman was new and unique in this environment. But every time you make these shows, you basically are saying, well, this is what led to him being there, meaning the environment was always conducive to him, meaning there were cowls all over the place already. You know what I mean?
I just feel like that doesn't work as an inside baseball and giving me lore. Just, I just knew he's a butler, and I knew he was this and that. I'm good.
What I will say, as a needle threading exercise to try and explain how he became Batman's butler, doesn't work as well. But as a show in and of itself, which was just entertaining, and what is this weird dude gonna go? What adventures is he gonna go into? How is he gonna get out of this one? Kind of a thing. It's very fun.
They should have called him the Butler. The show that you've been called the Butler.
Yes.
The Adventures of Butler.
I feel like the only reason why they added Pennyworth to it is because you know who Pennyworth is, right? And without Pennyworth being there, it probably wouldn't have gotten any attention at all. Although the show by itself is pretty entertaining, even though it has nothing to do with Batman.
I mean, look what they did with Batwoman in Batwoman, the show.
Yeah,
with Pennyworth.
Yeah. It's one of those things, But then again, I'm also and take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I've watched The Flash. I've watched Stargirl. I've watched.
I love Stargirl. Too bad it ended.
Yeah. I haven't seen the last season. I hear the last season is like the season now is the last season.
I didn't even know there was. I mean, I finished it, but I wasn't as. I thought it was a weak season, but I didn't even know Titan season 4 was on, and I just saw the other day.
Yeah, me too. So so that the viewers will know, we are like, I am, because there's so much going on in gaming and all of that. It's kind of like not ruined, but I spend a lot less time on TV and movies now, right? And I carve out time for movies and TV for very big, substantial properties.
I give shows 3 seasons before I watch it.
Oh, wow, interesting.
I don't like to be invested, and I've been invested in. Look at Swamp Thing, a great show.
Yeah, and then it's out, and then you're done after one season.
And it was Absolutely. That, and one of the best shows. I don't know if you had to watch, which was still worth the investment, was the the leftovers. Excuse me.
The Leftovers. Yeah.
Amazing show. I
Mhm.
actually I spent almost 6 months. I couldn't watch anything else because I love that show and what they did with
Mhm.
it.
And then you watched Endgame and went, "What the hell are you guys doing with the Leftovers over here?"
Yeah, no. I watched Sonic and I'm like, really? I went from this to like this.
Stop with Sonic slander, sir. Okay, let us get into some of this the show proper, okay? Because I wanted to talk with you about a couple shows that I have been watching, right?
Yep.
And I really wanted to talk with you about it because at the end of the day, I was kind of like, no one's really talking about it like they should. And by what shows am I talking about? I'm talking about She-Hulk, right? And the dear listener or viewer, I want to talk about it because it is controversial. Not necessarily because I love it or I hate it, but because it's a show that came out and people have a lot of thoughts. But for some reason, I don't think we've really reconciled with the She-Hulk show. There's a lot of people who don't understand it, I think, because they probably haven't read the comics, right? And even those who have read the comics have a lot of good points that I think we need to at some point have a conversation about, right? You haven't seen this show, but you have seen you've heard some of the conversations about it. Am I
I have.
mistaken?
I've never read the She-Hulk comics, but I've
Okay.
kind of dabbled from reading comics.
Okay.
And I've also heard some of the complaints, and I think we were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I guess it's a culmination of how Phase 4 of Marvel has felt overall. My thing with Phase 4 has been there hasn't been a clear vision.
Okay.
And what we're getting is we're getting these characters that are just being introduced, but it sort of feels like there's no direction. And from what I saw from I didn't like the beginning. I felt not because I think the show's bad. I just felt that there could have been someone, an actress out there that
Mm-hmm.
fits the mold of what we know as the character in the sense of the physique. I'm pretty sure there's.
Oh,
I'm
so
pretty
you
sure.
don't like her character? You don't like the
I don't like the
actor they
CG,
chose?
the way the CG goes with that character.
Okay.
And I want to make this
Okay.
clear just to make sure what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can go into a conversation that we're not talking about in the sense of, yes, when I look at her, the actress,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've seen other shows where there's, unfortunately, the girl from The Mandalorian is no longer making movies because of many things. I
Mm-hmm.
thought she would be great. I forgot the actress's name. Her name is Gina, I think. The girl from The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. And she's not. You mean Gina Carano?
Yes. When
Yeah.
I'm talking
See,
about
okay, you're
what
talking the
she
physique.
and I'm
Yeah.
guessing because the CG didn't
Mhm.
look as good. And again, you probably watched
Mhm.
the show, but when I
Yeah.
look at the CG, it if they did skimp on the CG, it masks. It sort of shows its things about the person they chose.
Well, okay. Let me push back on that for just a little bit. Just a little bit. The person who they chose was Tatiana Mislahi. That is her name, right? And I, for one, was super excited they chose her. Why? Because I've watched Orphan Black. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
you've ever seen Orphan
dude,
Black.
I love Orphan Black. What I'm
She
saying is,
plays like 21 different characters, and she plays them so well that you at some point forget that it's just one person in the room, and you're just like, yep, they're all different people, and you just at like 5 minutes in, you're just so convinced that she is these different individuals. But to your point, because they didn't put enough, and even at the end, and I've seen every single episode, and I, for one, I gave it a strong 7.5, 8 out of 10, which I really enjoyed that. I thought that was
okay.
good. I love Tatiana. I think she's brilliant. But if you haven't really spent too much time on the show and don't really know what to expect, and you don't really know what they are going for, your criticism is 100% valid, because the CG does her no favors, right? It could have, right? It definitely could have. And in the later episodes, as you're describing, in later episodes, they did put a body double in where it's a bigger actual woman, bodybuilder woman, and the translation is a little bit
well,
more.
remember the old Hulk? where they
Yeah, of
had the
course.
actor who was Bruce Banner,
Yeah,
but then
I
they
met
had that
him.
other bodybuilder who
Lou
was actually
Ferrigno. I met him at Comic-Con. I met
yeah.
Lou Ferrigno. Have a picture with him. I love Lou Ferrigno. Yeah.
Maybe if they could have done that, I would have. I think,
They kind
and
of
again,
did in the
it's
later
about
episodes. They
authenticity. I'm
kind
talking
of Lou
about.
Ferrigno did a little bit in the later episodes. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
So, from what I saw, I didn't
Mhm.
make a great first impression, and I'm very open
Sure.
minded with all these shows, and
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
gonna still watch She-Hulk. I'm gonna
Mhm.
sit down and watch
I
it.
really think people should. I think more people should watch it and not come at it from, okay, how does this fit into the MCU? Okay, what is this about? How is this MCU? MCU homework. Don't look at it like MCU homework, because if you look at it as an MCU homework, there's maybe 2 episodes that are actually useful to you. But
And
as
I
a
guess
funny show by itself, it's pretty damn good. I
and
really
I guess
enjoyed
this
it.
is the effect of Kevin Feige and the whole
Mhm.
cinematic universe is that now when I see these characters, I'm like, I want to be invested in them, but then I don't want them to go the route of what happened to Jessica Jones or
Mhm.
Luke Cage.
Mhm.
Where I think Jessica Jones was a great TV show.
Mhm.
I love Luke Cage. And then they sort of exist in a vacuum and now they're not there. And I hope they would come back in a sense of bringing them back now that they're with Disney, because that's where I'm going out with the whole phase 4. Like, I like
Don't get
meeting
me
these new
started, sir.
characters.
Don't get me started. Mm-mm.
Shang-Chi. I don't even know who that guy was, to be honest. And
Mhm.
I watched Shang-Chi and I was like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. I love everything about it. The
Mhm.
characters, the way they represented, a lot of the things that were in there. And again, that's the same thing with She-Hulk. I haven't let the bad reviews um kind of taint my thing on the character. Plus, I'm going in as someone that has never really known the lore, but I understand as someone who's a fan of it why they would
Mhm.
have their objections to it as well.
Okay. I will not give any spoilers to She-Hulk because I think it's a show that needs to be watched.
She's the Hulk's
But
cousin.
but what I will say is She-Hulk is a whole lot like Deadpool.
Okay.
Remember that going in. She
Okay.
is a lot like Deadpool. What does Deadpool do? Talk to the camera, break the fourth wall, know that he is a character in a play. He knows this, right? And
Okay.
because of that, right, he can do weird things that people just go, what the heck? She-Hulk is the same way. In the comic books, she would literally break out of her panel, and then in another panel, she's in the writer's room talking to the people that are writing the bubbles that she's supposed to be speaking and going, come on, guys. You give me better lines than this. This is crap. Like, this is what she does. This is
Okay.
Hulk, She-Hulk. So that's why I want to have this conversation, and we'll have it at some point when people have had a chance to see it.
So do you think
Mhm.
that many people that maybe don't know the character per se
I'm
are
thinking so.
comparing her too much to the Hulk and doing a disservice, because the Hulk is the Hulk, meaning
Mhm.
Bruce Banner, hey, I'm
Yeah.
moody and all this.
Yeah, yeah.
She's more Deadpool. Hey,
It's like this show. This show is Ally McBeal. Remember Ally McBeal?
oh yeah, of course. I used to
This
watch Ally
show is
McBeal.
Ally McBeal. That's what the show is. This is the
Okay.
problem why people don't get it. It is
Asante, now
Ally
you're
McBeal,
speaking my language right there.
bro. This is a 30-minute funny Ally McBeal that just happens to be a Hulk. That's
Okay.
what the show is, right? But because everything has become MCU homework, people can't disconnect. Oh, well, that was one type of show. This is a different type of show, right? They all kind of want to make it MCU homework. Oh, well, how does this forward the MCU narrative? Yeah, it does, but stop.
But
This is
their own
Ally
connected
McBeal.
stories to these characters, basically. They're their own
See,
centered stories around their
yes,
world.
yes, but I think, and we'll move forward and move to other topics, but from what I've heard about people upset about She-Hulk is, it's like if you're watching the Hulk, the Hulk
Yeah.
in a proper film, it's self-serious. Oh my God, what's happening? The stakes are so high. He just got beat up. Oh my God, blood, whatever, right? And then you see him in She-Hulk, and it's Ally McBeal. I hope you understand what that means. It means funny, quips, ridiculousness,
Yeah.
nothing serious at all, ever. It's just haha, funny, goofy. Even if something serious happens, it happens within the frame of this young 30 something who's a lawyer, who's looking for love and has always just kind of been been anonymous, and now all of a sudden she's the Hulk, and she literally stands out in every room, right? It's just hilarious. It's funny. It's just too short, but it's funny, and it's
You
I
brought up a good
seriously.
point. And let me
Mhm.
ask you this overall. I do you feel that many of these Marvel shows like Moon Knight, like
Mm.
even the Hawkeye show,
I love
even
the Hawkeye show, by the
oh,
way.
I
I thought it
loved
was
it.
great.
WandaVision,
Hmm.
they were too short, and a lot of the building they did kind of felt a little bit rushed towards the end because of how short they made these so-called bite-sized experiences
Mm.
of these new characters or existing characters. Because I always felt that when I saw, oh my god, this was great, but like, man, it ended already. Why didn't And the last episode was like 60 minutes of just pushing
I
everything in.
honestly think a lot of that has to do with COVID.
Okay.
It kind of happened to have started right when COVID was the thing, and because of that, Captain America and Winter Soldier kind of got short
Oh, that
shrift.
was so
Which
good
I
too.
loved that show. I loved, and people don't like it, and I'm just like, what were
But
you
why?
watching?
What do you mean?
It's so
It's
good.
fantastic.
It's great, right? All of them were really brilliant. But then
Loki.
at some point, you see they get rushed. You see, oh, it's almost like my favorite part of these MCU shows, which is stitching MCU lore into them,
Yep.
becomes homework, right? Because of the situation they found themselves in, it became more difficult to thread that needle. And that's the part that wasn't fun in comparison to just them being in their world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want the MCU to the ties that bind to be the good stuff. But because it was so hard to thread that needle and get the shows out because of reasons, it seems it looks like they're them threading that needle was very haphazard and really wasn't as well thought out as you wanted it to. You're right, and you really see that in like in Captain America and Winter Soldier. You see it, like it's a great story that has nothing to do with anything normal MCU, and then boom, it just kind of MCU'd itself out of nowhere in the last minute, right? Many of the shows are kind of like that. So I think probably that it's, to me, it seems that COVID and the time that those things were being filmed kind of really put a stamp on it and kind of skewed it in a certain direction, because the requirements are very high now. So many people can't be in the room anymore. Like there are a lot of pre-steps and post-steps that need to be taken to be safe in a COVID world. So all of that ate a lot of money and time and resources and budget. You know what I mean? So
I
I
mean,
feel like that really skewed things.
it's kind of what that talk always have. I
Mm,
like Black Widow, but I
mhm,
felt, why did you wait this long to bring Black Widow out? Because it feels like a movie where you've seen everything that happened, which should have
mm,
been great while I'm waiting for Endgame and all these to fill in to let me know what the rest of the Avengers were doing. And I feel that that movie, and because of COVID, of course,
mhm, of
um,
course.
got done a disservice of what it could have been, because it felt like a movie that could have been in a certain phase prior to Endgame and the other. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I completely agree with you. Okay, let us move forward. I usually say that I do this better when I'm live because I see live viewers. We're not live right now, but I will say it. If you happen to enjoy the conversation, why don't you hit that like button? Why don't you think about subscribing? We appreciate you being here. Yes, this is an offbeat show. It's an out of pocket show. We usually on this feed. You should expect a lot of gaming news, and you will get more gaming news from us coming in the future. But this time we're going a little off the beaten path, and I think we appreciate you guys being here. And I think if you stick with us, you'll find that you'll enjoy this conversation as well. But okay, let us move forward and let us talk about now. So I loved She-Hulk, and I think I want to have a conversation about She-Hulk at some point. I also really enjoyed the what do you call it, the Lord of the Rings Amazon film, Amazon TV show, which you also have not watched that as well, right?
It's on my list of shame. Yes.
And I wouldn't say it's on your list of shame. Don't say it's on your list of shame because
Meaning that
uh-huh.
I want to watch it and I haven't watched it. To kind of
Okay,
clarify. No,
okay.
I watched all the Lord of the Rings prior to that. I did read The Hobbit and I watched
Mhm,
the Hobbit movie. And when
mhm.
I saw this show, I said, "Hey, this is up my alley with these type of show. It looks really
Yeah,
good, and I want to learn more." And from the people that I spoke to,
mhm.
and my brother-in-law who watches, he said it's really good. He was really surprised
Yeah.
going into this. He didn't expect much from it, but the production value and just the overall kind of really blew him away.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you haven't seen it, so I won't go. We won't have to go too far into it. I want to spend some time on the show you have watched, which is the House of the Dragon. But just quickly off the top, what I will say about Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, is it is that thing that you and I were talking about that we don't like about shows potentially. In hindsight, it's much ado about nothing. It's a lot of episodes prepping for something that never happens. But boy, is the production values on point. Like every episode was $1 million movie. Especially and unfortunately, Everborn Saga is not with us today. He and I had the conversation about this, and he made a point that I completely agree with. At the beginning of both shows, I was like, oh, come on now. House of the Dragon, you guys need to put more money on the screen. This is ridiculous. Like, it doesn't look right. You know, the way the characters are being done and the way they're aging them up and all of this stuff. Come on now. It doesn't look right. Whereas if you compare it to the Rings of Power, every episode is like the OG Lord of the Rings movie. Like every episode looks like the movie. They went for Peter Jackson aesthetic and they achieved it. Like
Also,
it's
was this
literally
like a
like
passion project for Amazon?
I don't know about passion project. I think they want Lord of the Rings. They want Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They've
They don't
always
have that.
wanted
They
Game of
thought
Thrones.
what is it? Wheel of Time was going to be that, but I heard mixed reviews on that. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. That's what they want. They want their own version, like something that captures the zeitgeist, just like Game of Thrones had, right? The OG season 1 of Game of Thrones. Well, not season 1, but the first outing of season of Game of Thrones, right? It didn't end the way they wanted it to, but I suspect that's the reason why they put so much money on the board on this one, because they wanted their version of something that you must come and watch.
Do you
right?
think they can sustain that going into season 2 if it gets a season 2? Which I think it is.
It will definitely get a season 2. I see possibly season 2 will still be as much money as season 1 is. And what they did, what I thought was super interesting, by the way, a quick aside, is there's no one real big draw as far as actor in Rings of Power.
Interesting.
Right, there's no one huge actor. Now I know some of these actors because I watch movies and TV and stuff like that, and you know I've seen some of the characters and I go, oh, I know who this person is, I know who they are, I've seen them elsewhere. But by and large, a normal American audience will, and I specifically said American because a lot of those actors are not American, so I've seen them in other things, but I watch stuff that are not American. Normal American audience will not recognize almost any of those characters on the screen. So that tells you they didn't have to pay $10 million for one name, right? All that money, the millions upon millions of dollars that was spent on the screen, on everything, on the production values and all of that. I suspect season 2 may also get away with that. I don't think we'll get any further than that. I think we'll start seeing corners get cut, but at that point, they've already drawn you in. You're already committed to the characters. So even if they don't show you as much whiz bang, you'll still be there because you want to see what happens to them. Right now, you don't care about the characters. You don't know who they are. You don't care about them. So they have to show you as much whiz bang as possible to keep you interested. So I suspect it will most likely shift as the seasons go on.
Now I haven't watched Lord of the Rings, but from everything you described, but let's compare it to what you just said, because that was one of the things that I felt at first with House of Dragons. We're going to get into it. Is that I didn't know these characters. I've heard about them, but I didn't know them. Do you think that this, in comparison to Lord of the Rings, does it hurt Lord of the Rings more? Or does it hurt House of the Dragons more, in the sense of, like, not knowing, or someone coming in to
honestly, having seen them both, and we're gonna get into House of the Dragon proper right after this. Having seen them both, I thought that initially, but now I'm seeing the end of both of them. Like initially, I was like, "Come on, House of the Dragon, you need to step it up. Look at what Lord of the Rings is doing." And now, having seen the end, I'm like, House of the Dragon knew what the hell they were doing. Lord of the Rings kind of missed the mark. It's surprising.
Okay.
Yeah, like as far as production values, oh, Lord of the Rings is on point, no doubt. Take nothing away from them, but as far as what happens in the story, it's a lot of that thing that we were discussing, where they're just stringing you along until the next season, right? Whereas, as you know, God of God of War,
Come here,
amazing.
boy.
Oh my god! The House of the Dragon does not string you along. Yeah, you'll get a season 2. Yeah, it left you on a cliffhanger. But before you were left on said cliffhanger, boy, did some ish happen.
Yep.
Wow, like some stuff actually happened. Whereas in Rings of Power, it was like it's so close, and just when it's about to happen, the season is done until season 2. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying? So I suspect that's why people are so properly perturbed by House of the Dragon, by Rings of Power. But you know what? Let us get into House of the Dragon proper, right? Because I think that's a conversation that we need to have. And let me ask you from jump, before we get into it properly. Hold on, and I'll put some for my video viewers here. I will not show video of this on the screen for reasons, obviously, but I'll put some screenshots on here, and you guys can check it out as we go along. So let me ask you first and foremost, Mr. Joanna Dark, coming into House of the Dragon, what is your experience with this show? Are you just a show viewer and that's it, which is fine, or are you one of those book readers who've read the source material and know everything's about to happen?
So I read the first book
Okay.
after watching Game of Thrones. I
Oh,
started
so you read
reading.
it after? Okay.
Well, no. So excuse me. After I
Mhm,
watched season 1 of Game of Thrones, I
mhm,
started
mhm. Then you
reading the
start
book.
reading the book. Okay,
Yeah,
cool, cool, cool. All right.
and I always was intrigued by. I didn't know what Game of Thrones was. I just remember one day I technically um, put on this random
Mhm,
show that I
mhm.
pulled, and I saw the first episode of, and I was just sucked in to this world. And that's because I'm a huge fan of Dragon Age.
Okay.
So
Oh
it
yeah.
so when I heard about the White Walkers and all these other things, I was like, "Whoa, this sounds like Dragon Age, where you have these demons that are coming and they're gonna have to get into this massive fight and
Mhm,
bring all these different people together." And it was just something that I just, from the moment I started, I could not stop, and it was great to go back to the first book, The Song of Ice and Fire, to
mhm,
kind of get those little inside, details of certain characters that were kind of modified and certain events that were very different.
mhm,
So fast forward, when I heard about this House of the Dragons, I was like, you know what? I think this is great. I would love to learn more, or have people, my wife as well, watch about the Targaryens and kind of what happened pre Song of Ice and Fire, things that led to this.
yep.
And I gotta say, um, I was a little bit at first skeptical, like we were kind of been talking about when I first saw the first episode. But I don't want to. I guess what I want to. I don't want to go. I don't want to get off the cliff before we get that and kind of get your opinion.
Understood.
I know
Understood.
it was a bad cut right there, but I was like, I don't want to
Cliffhanger.
go one way.
Cut.
Yeah. But what about
Understood.
yourself? I know
Understood.
you said you
Mhm.
read the books.
I've read most of the books. I haven't read all of them,
Sure.
but this the source material where this is from, I haven't read it, but because let's be honest, it's boring. Like well, okay.
I know what you're saying. Yes.
It is an outline of Song of Ice and Fire is about the characters, right? You know where they go, you know all that. After the Song of Ice and Fire, if you want to read about what got them there, there's a book that basically gives you the history of what got Jon Snow and every character to where they are, right? Basically, it's a historical retelling, if you will, almost looked at in kind of like very highbrow from top down, and this generation went to this generation and this happened, and that's the source material they're pulling this from, House of the Dragon from, right? And obviously that's George R. R. Martin still, but it wasn't written from a character perspective. It was written very much in a world building kind of a frame, right? So yes, you get characters, yes, you get names and all that, but it leaves a lot of room for these showrunners to interpret, because it's not written finitely directly as as a Song of Ice and Fire was. And spoiler alert, it is said that George R. R. Martin is far more heavily involved in this one than he was in the first one.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah. This
That's
is his baby compared to the first one.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one, he just gave them notes once, and they did the whole thing with just notes that he got.
Yeah, wasn't it
This
that
is
he
just
just was
Mhm.
behind schedule? So he even told him to make up season 8.
Yep. And and then later in hindsight, he's like, "Well, that didn't work out, so I won't be using any of that material to finish the book."
He's like, forget about that. Hey, here's the real.
He just screwed you guys. Like, oh, that experiment ruined. I guess I'll be avoiding that then.
Stay tuned to my book so you can buy it. He's like the
You know what I
real
mean?
ending.
That's right. But yeah, so in this story, first and foremost, there's not really any, at least from the book perspective, there's not really any full-fledged characterizations of people, like how they are. You don't really get that sense, because it's more about the time. Oh, well, this was the time when the Dragon Riders were around, and this is
Yep.
what they did, and this is how they did it, and this is how they governed. It's very highbrow and upper level, not really detailed digging into each character in their day-to-day like it did in the first book, right?
Correct.
So I think that's a double-edged sword, right? Meaning it leaves a lot for interpretation, but that also means you can fill a lot in, and your highbrow nose in the air book readers ain't got nothing to say about it, because they don't have the source material. There is no real source material. There's just broad strokes. You know what I'm saying? So,
This reminds me of The Leftovers. The
okay.
Leftovers was one book, and what made that show amazing was
Mhm.
sort of what we're seeing here, in the sense of what you just said, where
Mhm.
they told him, "Hey, it's up to you to make up the season 2 and
To fill
3."
in the middle, yeah. Fill in the
And
middle, yeah.
yep,
Yeah, and of course they have George R. R. Martin on hand, so clearly it will be a better effort than it was the last time they tried to fill things in, right? So all I would like, what I will say about, but on the top of the dome when I first started watching this, my first thought was, like you, I don't know the characters, and I also happen to be watching Rings of Power, and it looks so much better than this, like from a production standpoint. It
yes,
is like it is top tier movie quality versus what looks like a tight budgeted TV show in
I agree.
comparison,
That's how
right?
I felt at first.
At first, 100%, 100%. But then as the story goes on and it progresses and yeah, let me be real with you. That book that gives you that high level, they follow it pretty faithfully, right? There are certain deviations here and there, and because it's high level, they can be a bit more detailed in the middle. But from what I can tell, they were pretty faithful with it, and the execution came out pretty brilliant, right?
What about the time jumps? Let's talk about that quickly. That is what I think at first took me a couple of episodes, because here's what I was trying to do.
Hmm.
I was trying to decipher this as if I was trying to decipher, to be honest, like a video game story,
Okay.
where I was trying to put things like, okay, at one point I thought she was actually dreaming that they were at a
Yeah.
certain stage.
Remember, no spoilers.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I felt in the
Uh,
time jump that they showed
yeah,
you,
yeah.
I
Oh,
felt
the
the
time jump
character, it
itself
was a
was a
dream.
dream.
It was a dream.
Ah,
And
okay.
it finally
Okay.
just hit me in the head. I was like, wait, this is not a dream. This is
Mhm,
what's happening. Yes, no
mhm.
spoilers.
Yeah.
And the time jump that the show does itself with
Mhm.
the whole world and characters was a little bit at first. It took me time to kind of get used to it, because you're right. I was so used to the day-to-day scenes of the first of the show, of the other one,
Yeah.
of regular Game of Thrones, where I saw, Ned Stark milking a goat or something, versus
Yeah.
Bran there feeding a
Mhm,
dog and hanging out, versus this was just like straight this.
mhm, mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. I really like. I have to say, I like a show where it's all about talking, right? When Game of Thrones first started, right? When Game of Thrones first started, you didn't even know there'd be dragons. You didn't even know there'd be any kind of, like, high fantasy stuff. It was very much like very grounded, very
Yep.
sword and shield kind of a affair, right? And then towards the end, I feel like it got popular. We know what happened there, and then they opened the budget up and they really started throwing dragons on the screen, right? House of the Dragon starts with that budget already high. It starts from jump as high as Game of Thrones gets, right? Compared to, as we've already established, compared to the Lord of the Rings show, it pales in comparison. But still, I was surprised that from day one, the show's called House of the Dragons. Not only do they show you dragons, they show you abundance of dragons, and the CG is pretty on point. Do you disagree?
I agree. I think what they were trying to do with that is say, look, this is House of Dragons. This is the Targaryens. Let's show you the dragons. And the dragons are sort of the backdrop of everything else. They're like literally here you go. And now that we showed you that dragons exist in this world, let's go ahead and kind of that be the backdrop of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was surprised because I've seen some pretty bad CGs when it comes to like either dragons, and I was like, okay, and kind of speaking of that, that's what kind of threw me off because when I did see the dragons, I was like, they look pretty good, but then there was still something off with the rest of the show at the time. When I'm talking about the way the characters look, the way certain scenes played out, it was like if I literally went out and played dress up with my kids at one point, and I had these little fancy suits that we just cleaned up, and we were just acting at first.
Absolutely. See, and you didn't even watch the Rings of Power to be able to contrast that. I was watching Rings of Power myself and Everborn. We were watching Rings of Power.
Yeah.
So when you watch that episode and then watch this, it is so egregious. It is like it's almost like playing a video game and you hit that uncanny valley and you get the dead eye thing. That's what we were. It's like, how is it that this popular show just did not like put enough money on the screen? This is so strange, or so we thought, right? So let's move a little deeper into this, and we're heading towards spoiler territory, but we're not there yet. Let's move a little deeper into this, right? As episodes 2, 3, like you said, there's a time jump, right? And the time jump makes sense because, like I've already described, the source material is kind of like an accounting of the times. This is how their generation went. This is how it went from how they started. There's the middle stuff. There's drama. This is where they ended up, but it's very high level. So when I first started watching this, and I was talking to Everborn about it, I've read this book before, but it was so long ago, including Song of Ice and Fire, that I kind of don't remember all of that. And this book was frankly kind of boring. Like I said, it's not about character development. It's about laying the groundwork for the world that the next book will be in, right? So if you're reading it, it's kind of very encyclopedia almost, right?
Kind of like when you read the beginning of a book and it's like either you want to read the prologue or something, and you're like, do I really want to read this or just jump straight to the chapter? But it's building everything leading into the main part of the book.
Watching Game of Thrones, even if you just watch it as just a viewer, they take their locations seriously, right? Even at the beginning of the show, they show you their locations in the beginning credit. Oh, where are they? They're in Driftmark. Oh, where are they? They're in King's Landing. Oh, where they take those locations seriously, and they want you to know those locations very seriously. So this book was very much about locations and the families and what they were doing and how they conquered this generation, right? But from a very high level. And it looks like this show is taking that idea and going, great, they didn't really fill in any of the gaps, so we get to fill in those gaps and make it a little bit more nuanced because we have that option. And no one will go, well, it's not like the book, because it really isn't like the book. The book is very much, hey, this is how it was. No one person's story was really told definitively because it was more like a high level thing, right? So you as a person who hasn't read the book, you were talking about the time jump, and obviously the time jump is a byproduct of what the end story they're trying to tell. They're trying to get to the end where the conflict happens, and it takes many generations to get to the end where the conflict happens. So obviously you're gonna have to age them up. What did you think of all of that?
I at first, like you were saying, right? I was trained,
Mm-hmm.
what we were just kind of discussing, that I was gonna see Rhaenyra, which is not a spoiler, that's her name.
Yeah,
And
that's her name.
I was gonna see her when she was probably in her sweet 16 and all this other
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that I'm getting these things and I'm getting the key moments within that period. The conflicts and what's going into, the key players that are going to play overall in this whole story and many to come. And it's and another thing that it reminds me that you were saying about Lord of the Rings, where there's not such like a main character.
Mm-hmm.
There's some names here, but
Yes.
I just feel that they're just filling the history gaps,
Yep.
because it's sort of a it seems like it's this show, like you're saying, getting to the end of where Song Ice and Fire kind of starts.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be about generations. So in a way, it's giving us here, these are the time periods to not really fall in love with them, because you never know where the show might go.
Yep.
But you're gonna know, hey, at one point I saw Lord Corlys, and I know Lord Corlys in this and XYZ, I know Alicent and all so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Game of Thrones, I had to train myself, hey, you know, don't like XY character. I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't watched it, so that's why I'm not saying much. But you know, I couldn't fall in love with a character because one minute it'll be like, oh, is this character going to be here? Is this character not? Versus this one is like, hey, you're right. The thing that you're going to love, dragons and the world and this
Yep.
time period,
Yep.
and the players that we're going to just throw into this sandbox per se. And I was going to ask you, when you were talking about the way this is interpreted versus people that criticize, you know, Game of Thrones because there are books. Do you think that this has helped this show succeed to an extent as well? It's a great show,
Mm-hmm.
succeed because of the fact of the way this book was written and the way they're doing it, or like where it allows them not to be like so, I would say, scared to kind of deviate from the material.
Absolutely. I do. I completely agree. I do think that because the book was written in broad strokes, it allows for the showrunners to get in there and be more nuanced, and you can go left or you can go right. As long as it ends where it's supposed to end, no one will complain, and no book reader will complain, because the books themselves weren't that nuanced, right? They were also very much at a high level because they were just establishing ground. That's all that book was there for, to establish ground, to establish, hey, this is the houses, this is what they did, this is how they reigned. There were stories and they got in there, but it was very high level. And because of that, I honestly do think, to your point, that it gives these showrunners room to breathe and go left and go right. And yeah, we're heading in the same rough direction, but like in the past show, there were instances where, well, I know this person had this haircut and he did it like this, and why haven't the showrunners continued that trend? All that's out the window because none of that is in the book.
Or like
Like,
the
mhm,
way they portrayed Arya Stark, I was a little bit mad
there
at
you
first
go.
because of the way she was in the books and the way it took
Exactly.
forever to develop her in the show. Yeah, that's another thing.
Yes, because if you have to deal with source material that's very specific, then it is up to you, to either explain why you chose a different path or follow that path exactly. And they didn't do either. They veered off the beaten path and they didn't really explain it. So, righteous smoke. It is what it is, right? But in this instance, I really do like that it seems like they're moving in a different direction with it, where not only are they keeping the high budget, which is great, right? We worked up to that high budget. It seemed like HBO needed to see that the show was worth spending money on, right? So that's why we only got dragons towards the end of the season, the end of the whole thing, right? This time around, they're like, "Yep, start with the dragons," and they haven't lost any of that back and forth, backbiting, people in rooms having conversation stuff. You know what I mean? Like. Do you disagree? Like, I feel like the show
I
hasn't missed a beat as
It
far as,
hasn't, and I
yeah.
think what they had to do with this show to convince you to maybe
Mm,
to kind of maybe lure people that have never even watched Game of Thrones and
mhm,
maybe they want to get them in there, is that they wanted to give you the thing that even fans of the series wanted, which is, hey, show me these dragons and
mm,
show me this family. And I think, yeah, it hasn't skipped a beat. I think, like I said, over those first couple of episodes, it just kept on getting better and better from a visual standpoint, from a
Mm-hmm.
presentation, and overall just the dynamics of everything that was happening. It was just, I felt I was more intrigued and be like, oh wow, like I didn't know about this. I didn't know about this specific area and the fact that this person controls this region and this and so like the politics that I felt were there in originally in Game of Thrones, but it didn't go into that depth of
Yeah, a lot
really.
less houses now, a lot less characters now, so they can spend a lot more time seemingly really fleshing out who
and
does what and why
and
and all that. Yeah.
and just like the dragons, I like that they sprinkle in names. Just throw names. Yeah, we know,
Mm.
the Starks, the Baratheons,
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
Lannisters. And for
Yep.
people that have watched the show and watched, you like, yeah, I know. Let me, which ancestor are we gonna meet? And you're like, oh yeah. And and I love, at one point, and again, I'm not spoiling anything, and I'll go into the where you meet a certain family, and you're like, okay, I see that this family is similar to X family in Game of Thrones in the sense of personality and how they carry
Mm.
themselves. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. No, no, I completely agree with your assessment. It is, they did something interesting. Like I was expecting, them to play it safe because they could have, and they definitely did not. They definitely did not. I feel like they really did push the envelope a bit in this genre. Like they really like, because the second time a show comes out, a second bite at the apple is never as good as the first, right?
Correct.
I loved God of War 2018. Like there are those who don't like it as much. They want their Kratos to be angry and always be the man baby that he always has been, walking around smacking gods and fornicating and all of that, right? It happened to me that the 2018 God of War, or was it 2016? No, 2018.
2018, 2018.
2018. Yeah. I always confused 2018 God of War with 2016 Doom. They always they're there. So 2018 God of War. The reason why I think that thing really hit heights for me was because at that time I feel like I was opening myself up. I had a new kid, so I kind of understood the whole boy
Okay.
aspect of it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? When it hits you at a different place, it means something to you. I feel like a bit of that is happening here as well. What do you think?
Yeah, to not linger because it's not, we're not going to talk about God of War much,
Oh, when I
but
talk about God of War, I'm just using
I played the series over the summer.
yeah.
And one of the things that I said about 2018, I wasn't a father yet.
Mm,
No, sorry. Yes, I was. I had my daughter,
okay.
excuse me.
Okay.
But what stood out to me about God of War in general, and the reason I think it's special is because
Mhm.
two movies that I love, Man on Fire and Logan. And I felt
Mm,
Kratos, like Logan and like Denzel, they had such a crazy past of where they were animals because of what happened.
mm.
And in 2018, kind of like Logan, you're seeing that a person has come to the
Full
realization of
circle.
everything they've done full circle. I want to
Yep.
get out, but for some
Yep.
reason, no matter what I try to do, I can't get out. And now I have a second chance with a different opportunity. And I look as Atreus, and I'm not going to spoil anything, as
Mhm.
as what was the actress's name? In Man on Fire, I think, but her name was Peter, they called her in there. I think it was Dakota Fanning or something.
Nicole Fanning. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Atreus reminds me of her in that scenario where
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Kratos. But yeah, but in this show, yes, I love the that the visceral that I just cutthroat. Like I mean, honestly, I want to talk about it, but there's some characters that I compare to the characters that were in Game of Thrones, and I'm like, this is
Mm-hmm.
just like Littlefinger. This is just like this.
So okay. We're about 30 minutes until 2 hours of our conversation. So I think right now, and I'm gonna put a little asterisk here, so I can
Yeah.
possibly put something in there to differentiate. But right now would be a perfect time for us to jump into spoilers. So those of you who have not watched this show, first and foremost, we appreciate you being here. That means you watched all this without necessarily watching any of this the source material, and that means you trust us not to give you spoilers. So thank you so much for being here. If you haven't checked it out, go watch the show, come back, finish this spoiler talk when you're done. Before you leave, hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't. But we're now going into full spoiler town, sir. Mr. Joanna Dark, let's speak on some spoilers here.
Sure.
Before we get to the end, because that's where I want to do the spoiler talk. Tell me where you want what where your hands were tied that you really want to like speak further on it now. Go ahead.
You know, since I just finished the last episode last night of House of
It's all
Dragon,
fresh. Uh-huh.
I want to talk about everything leading up to the ending, up to the point where Rhaenyra's and of course Rhaegar kind of talked,
Mm-hmm.
where you sort of come to the realization that he told her that she made the same mistakes that her dad did, of how personality wise was, in the sense of being too soft and not ruling the way you should rule, with a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of tough
A
and
little bit
some
of
love,
fear. Yep.
and that was going to come bite her back. And
Yep.
it so happened that it did, with that ending. And that kind of set that stage up. And it just kind of in my head, like, you know, they kept saying, um, her father was a great ruler. He was
Mm-hmm.
kind, he was guarded. But the one thing that they always pointed out as well is that due to that,
Mm-hmm.
prior to this ending, we saw what happened with the sea snake and that beef that first
Yep.
started. And
Yep.
it was
Yep.
because he didn't know when he needed to be a king and execute.
Yep. Yep. You need to know when the niceties have to fall away and you have to fall and do what you're supposed to do. And he always seemed to lean towards the niceties. So you just kind of knew that at the end of the day, when it was time for when he passed away, oh boy, hell would come to pass, right? You just kind of saw it happening. I think I started seeing that 2 or 3 episodes before he was actually officially dead. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh boy, it's gonna be
And
some
and, and
ish.
here's the and here's the thing, right? It sucks because Prince Damon doesn't
Mhm,
he doesn't have the qualities of sort of being that leader.
mhm.
He has the qualities of being a barbarian, which is lacking.
Yeah,
So they both
he's a
have their
conqueror.
things, that the reason I think they were chosen is because they knew that he was very compassionate, but that was also his Achilles heel.
Yeah,
That in a way you wish he had both. So his brother was kind of the offset, but he was also a loose cannon, Damon.
absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about that end. Let's talk about and clearly, obviously, it's a cliffhanger. Season 2 is going to come, and I wonder. Excuse me. I wonder how season 2 is going to start when basically you're starting with the drama, with obviously for those who and we're in spoiler talk here, so all no holds barred. Obviously, Daenerys. I always say Daenerys. Viserys was literally ousted in favor of. Uh-huh.
Now let me ask you this. Now you're saying it. Continue.
Yeah, in favor of the son who would then be replacing him. And obviously, if you saw the last episode, you know that the king wasn't saying that. The king was just remembering the conversation from the day before. The guy is delusional. He's old. He's dying. He thought he was talking to his daughter, and instead he was talking to his wife. And it brought about World War III, I guess.
So two things that you said right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to ask you: do you think, because you catch it briefly
Mm-hmm.
when Lucerys dies, Aemon was just trying to scare him, but by mistake, his dragon, he couldn't control him, killed him by mistake.
Yeah.
Because you see
Yeah.
it in the beginning prior to the chase that he lost control.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
at,
Yeah.
and at that split second, he's like, no, no, no. I forgot the
Yep.
dragon's name. And
Yep.
it just happened that he snaps Lucerys in
Yep.
half. Now, the other part was with the king, of course,
Mm-hmm.
where he was talking to his wife, Alicent, King Viserys. He was talking about the story that Aegon the Conqueror talked about, the Song
Yep.
of Fire and Ice, and she
Yep.
interpreted as, no, my son Aegon, which is
Yeah.
named
Well,
after.
but remember, he hadn't said that for the foretelling to
Yeah,
anyone, not even his
correct,
own brother, right?
correct.
So the only one that knew was his daughter. So when he was saying those things the second time around, she thought that his wife thought that he was, because it was devoid of context, right? It's almost like he thought that he was still having the same conversation from the day before when it was the day after and it was a different human there. But it's almost like his brain became lucid for a moment and was continuing the conversation from the day prior. But of course, it's a secret, and the person that's there isn't the person you initially started the conversation with. So it can easily be misconstrued that, oh, by the way, oh yeah, can it though? I say that, but can it? Where they ended up taking this? Oh well, earnestly, he changed his mind. Did he really can you? Obviously, he didn't. But can you see, because they've played the queen as a straight shooter, even though she has her agenda. She's morally been a straight shooter throughout this entire season, even though she has every ability to be shady. And when her minions do some dirty work, she's quick to be like, nah, that's not what I wanted, even though she kind of benefits from it, right? I get that. Do you think that her pursuing right now is earnestly because she thinks she heard what she thought she heard, or it's just kind of like par for the course? This gives me what I need to continue what I was planning on doing anyway. What do you think?
Well, speaking of minions, we'll talk about Lars later. But I think you see it in the king, right? I think every time that they sort of mentioned that their kids were bastards, and that that he even named her the queen, I think it was a resentment that he felt of everything that transpired when Rhaenyra was a child. And he just wanted to do something. I felt that was his way of saying, hey, even though he always wanted a son, I think that was his way of rectifying what he did to his wife when they had the first child. And he said, hey, go ahead, and because he wanted an heir so bad. And I think that now with the queen, I think that little by little, she tried to fit into that family while trying to also weirdly being Rhaenyra's stepmom, but then trying to still have that friendship, but you can't. I mean, because you're the queen and you're my stepmom now. You can't have that dynamic anymore. And everything I started with the whole part where she lied to her about who she slept with. And I think finally after listening to her dad and being under pressure, she finally said, well, hey, this is the way of me sort of getting back what I felt I gave up by marrying your dad, by basically taking it for the team, because her dad told her, hey, I'm putting you in this position because I need somebody from our lineage. And he told her, you never have the guts. So she finally said, hey, this is my opportunity to finally rectify something that I want to do. For once, I wants to be for me, not because you told me, not because my dad's planning it, not because my husband, called for me. It's something that she wants to do because as a mother, and also because she's all her life, she's been told that she just needs to listen and do this. She's doing it, I think, for her own gratification of feeling that she, for once, has made a decision.
No, I like your take. I like your take on it. I do like your take. And by and large, I agree. It seems like decisions got her to where she was rather than a self-fulfilling prophecy. She was earnest in her pursuits, and it just so happens that, as honorable as you try to be, at the end of the day, we all saw where you were being funneled to. And the minute she walks into the room and she has this amazing news, they're like, oh well, let's pull the trigger on the thing we were talking about anyway. And she's just like, what? Like, what's going on here?
And it's kind of like what I was trying to really explain is like, it's like when you're the leader of a team, right? Or I worked in retail, I was a manager. You can't be a manager and also be buddies with the people that you lead. There is a relationship dynamic that it goes to an extent. And I felt that's what I'm trying to say, is that she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, and she can't have it. So she eventually just said, hey, well, if I can't, then it's all about me.
Then it's all about me. If we're gonna have to murk fools, then we're gonna murk fools, I guess. It is what it is.
And then you got Lars there. Oh
yeah. So about Lars, and I will give this show a bit of smoke because I feel like they're recreating archetypes.
Yeah,
and they don't have to do that. I feel like they don't have to create a Littlefinger archetype.
Which
They don't
Lars
have
feels like Littlefinger.
yeah, they kind of created little archetypes, you know, making it cyclical, meaning like it's like I hear you and it's all fun because from a viewer's perspective, those were the fun characters we enjoyed. But you don't have to kind of, hey, guess what? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's not him, but it really is him, kind of thing, right?
Or Mizaria, who's like she plays like, what is it, Lord Varys? Yep.
Yes, exactly. She plays Lord Various and she has her little birdies everywhere. There are archetypes in this world, right? Yeah, new season, new people, same exact position being played, which I thought was a little odd, right? That's if there's smoke to be given, I think that is smoke that should be given. They tried to do a bit more of the thing that they did on season 1 as well with what's her face, I forget the name of the family. Come on, give me the name of the family. White-haired family, come on.
Oh, the Valerians, Lord
No,
Corlys.
not the Valerians. Darn it, damn it, I don't know their name. They threw the kid down the well, off the brother sister.
Well, yeah, no. Are you talking about Lord Corlys's kids?
Not Corlys. I'm talking about from Game of Thrones proper. Season 1, Game of Thrones, brother and sister.
Starks?
Not Starks. Not
the
Starks. Lannisters. The Lannisters.
Yes.
In this season, it looks like there are many archetypes, and the Lannisters are also an archetype. Although they weren't given, it wasn't given to the Lannisters themselves, it still was an archetype. Actually, if you look at the queen, well, the princess and her would-be, right? It all became the same kind of thing, right? Whereas season 1, it was, oh, secretly they are the kids of the brother and sister. In this case, it was secretly they are Strongs. It's the same archetype over and over and over again.
But here's how I think I'm gonna slightly disagree, and I think they sort of mask that.
Okay.
They give you a reason why they sort of accept this, because if you listen to the other characters, they're cousins of cousins of cousins, and it's because they want to keep the blood.
They want to keep the bloodline pure.
Lord Corlys says, you have no idea about blood. And it's basically, if that's why she came to him and saying, hey, if we're gonna do this, I need you to be with you because we're both Targaryens and vice versa. And then you see it in the side deals that every time you ever notice that in this show so far, yo, I'm about to die, so let's make a deal and I'm gonna marry somebody off to you. It's like
yeah, real quick. I feel like I'm heading to the bottom. So let me do a real like negotiation real quick and see if that'll stop me from being
rocks. Let's go ahead and do negotiation.
Absolutely. So okay. That very last episode, right? We get to the last episode. Like, did you see that coming? Because I saw it coming. I didn't see it coming how it was going to happen. And for my audio / video viewers, the queen then asks all of her minions, if you will, and actually I guess her children actually volunteered to basically go to the various houses and plead their case. Hey, here's the queen, she's the real queen, we want your banners. You initially said that you'd pay fealty, and now here you are, maybe not doing that. We're here to make sure you keep your word, right? So all the kids are going, all the various representatives are either flying using horseback, but of course the children volunteer to go, and the queen picks out different places that she thinks that would be safe for them, and they went, oh, we'll do it on Dragonback because obviously people coming on Dragonback makes you it helps you understand, like it's a matter of attention, right? Hey,
and power
it's power, and yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the minute I heard them doing this and they're having the conversation, and in the video while you're watching the show, you see it's raining really bad, and you see like the young boy having to traverse the rain, and he's trying to, and he's all by himself, and I'm just like, this is a bad look, man. I
horror movie, like a horror movie,
I foresee some, I foresee some BS, and then he shows up and his his half brother, his
No,
step brother, his
it's his
uncle
uncle, his uncle.
technically his uncle is already there. With his jewel encrusted eye, it was like, oh man,
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you could see
oh
it.
man.
You know what? I saw it from a mile away. The minute I
Hmm.
saw that, I was like,
It's
okay.
a wrap. Oh boy, how's this gonna work?
Now, I thought it was gonna happen where, remember, we met the Baratheons of
Hmm.
that generation, and he looked like, he was all like, "Hey, you come in here, you now offer me everything." I thought he was gonna allow that execution there, but he
Yeah,
actually was honorable and said, "Hey, not in my house."
now in my house. Yeah,
And then I said,
absolutely,
"Okay,
absolutely.
he's gonna
Yeah.
die somewhere else, probably in the gutters." Um, and
Uh-huh.
I just saw this from a mile away because
Yeah.
I don't know if it was gonna be the older one or the younger one, but one of them I knew was about to die. And I
We're
guess
about to get smoked. Yeah.
the breadcrumbs were there because they were also afraid because they also said, "Hey, we're gonna go to war, but our dragons are not battleborn in the sense
Yeah.
of experience."
Yeah.
And this dude actually took Damien's past, his wife, Lord
Hmm.
Corliss's daughter's dragon,
Dragon, the
which was one
biggest
of the higher
dragon in the
elder
yes,
dragons.
yes.
My thing is,
And
what
remember, when real quick, when she died, he was done. He was not going to take like the dragon was not going to get any more riders. Anybody that tries and goes there gets murked by that dragon. That dragon is not listening to anybody. So him getting this dragon was a very unusual thing, right? And the daughter wanted to claim him herself, but let's be real, the daughter probably could not have claimed that dragon.
yeah, and it's just, yeah, I just saw that from a mile away,
Hmm.
and it was just like, it's I guess they had to set it up like this, but the way they set it up, I felt like there was more. But when I think about it, after I thought about it 24 hours, I think
Hmm.
it was set up perfectly to bring you
Oh
back.
yeah, absolutely. Perfectly set up. Perfectly set up. My only problem is it's like how are they going to start season 2? Are they going to start season 2 what one episode of a war and then all of a sudden somehow we Homer Simpson the Simpsons go back to normal like nothing happened on season 2, or will season 2 be spent the entire season in war? I
So
don't know.
my next question is: we saw Damon
Mhm.
look for another bigger dragon. My
Yeah. Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
thing is, does it
And they
start
have
from
some
there?
incubation. They have some incubation still going. They've
Could
already said that they're 100%, like it's not like that's the end of the dragons. They still have some in incubation. So
could we start there? That maybe Damon goes looking, or falls upon the body, or do we even think? What if he's not dead? What if he sort of has uh maybe a scar or some type of deformity due to the dragon hurting them? We don't know.
mm.
But I'm assuming, I'm going to say 100% you're dead. uh that's a good question. I don't know how it starts. I mean, do we get a glimpse? Do I want to see a glimpse of what I
Mhm.
already know is already going to happen, or do I want to see maybe this dude goes back, and what does Allison do when she finds out you just killed?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? Because Allison it purports to be an honorable figure, right? And when they were talking about potentially like killing uh like previous characters that you wouldn't want she wouldn't want to have killed, she was not happy about that news. So to hear about, hey, your son basically ate your son's
So
dragon ate their kid, like you expect scorched earth at that point.
let me ask you this, and this is something that's been bothering me.
Mm.
Let's talk about Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, the queen that should have been.
Mhm.
Do you think that we're overlooking, and she actually has her own agenda and she's just letting this play out in the background? Remember, she didn't kill the family. She just
Mhm.
said, "Hey, leave me out of this," and she flew with her dragon. But my thing is, you know, I feel that she's playing the game.
Mhm.
But is she really the one that's also pulling the strings to hopefully then be like, "Hey, I'm gonna let these two kill themselves, so then I can bring my family along with Lord Corlys." Because she also, I love Lord Corlys. He's very strong character, but I
Mhm.
feel that Lord Corlys also has a soft side to him that is not as ruthless as his wife.
Sure, sure.
So
Yeah, no, I agree with
his
you.
bark is like, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have that bite.
Yeah, he's been on the we should have been kings and queens train for a long time, and it seems like his bark is louder than his bite. But his wife is biding her time, and she got another agenda on that.
I
I
mean,
do
after what
see what you're
happened to
saying.
Damon, I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that scene, oh my god, I was just like, I was just like, that was like
Just
Mortal
like
Kombat.
exactly fatality. I saw that happening a mile away as well. I mean, after he opened his mouth and said what he said, I was like, okay, bro, you just asking for it at that point. That's hilarious. But okay. So, all right, we're at the bottom of this episode because we're almost hitting 2 hours, and I wanted to get a nice 2 hour going, and I think we really like buttoned up this the conversation about this show. It's still in the air, right? We don't. The beginning of season 2 could retroactively, I should say, ruin season 1. But right now, I think it's peak TV. What do you think?
No, I think the way it ended, you just have to go and find out.
Yeah.
Usually you see a TV show, you're like, okay, cool. I think the hardest thing in anything is to end something, right? Or even to leave it that
Mm-hmm.
cliffhanger, because there's some
Yep.
bad cliffhangers.
Land the
I
plane.
f-
Yep.
I feel the way this left me, I want to go back and just rewatch the season to kind of pick up the crumbs, because I want to know when I hear, hey, House of Dragon season 2 coming whenever, right? I want to be ready because I want to know exactly where it's left off, and it has me talking.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they start after the way they cut it? Like, where do they start? You know, do they start with the Starks? Remember, because the other son left to the Starks, and you
Yeah.
sort of slowly, maybe you do an episode that people will criticize you, but you slowly shift it to then build it back up to that specific scene,
Mm.
and maybe, again, I kept talking. Does Damien figure it out? Does his brother? Does Larry's sorry, what's his name? Larry's? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. What is it? Luceris. Sorry, Luceris.
Lucerys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Luke, as they call him, Valerian. Um,
Mm-hmm.
does his brother find this out? Does one of the does the Baratheon find out and say, "Hey, man, I can't stand behind what you did"?
Mm-hmm.
So
So
who knows?
okay, just one last bit of smoke that I think is specifically to the point you're making about what he did. Right? How is it that he did that in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the ocean in the sky, and then by the time like we cut to mom and dad, they know exactly what happened. I mean, they may not know exactly what happened because they don't speak on words, but he whispers in her ear. She turns around, like obviously with the look of a woman who's a mother who's lost a child. Like they found
Yeah,
out what happened.
yes.
How do you know what happened? It happened in the middle of the woods, like in the middle of the air and the ocean. Did he then go home and go, "Mommy, look what I did. I killed," like was he spreading the word?
And that's what I'm telling you. Do they open it up where, Amon
Mm-hmm.
goes, he regrets what he did because he didn't mean that. He
Yeah.
just meant to scare them, to be like, hey, I mean business.
Yeah, he meant to
And
take
he
out an eye.
and he tells Allison, hey, I lost control
Mm-hmm.
of my dragon and I killed, you know, Rhaenyra's son.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happens that maybe Allison wants to, you know, still barter peace because she doesn't want war,
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that even the king himself is just a drunk and, doesn't even
Yeah.
want to be on the throne.
So are you saying that what you think will happen now is, being that the roles are reversed now, and the mother, a mother has seen her, a mother has heard her child been killed. So now, even if the queen says, "Okay, let us parlay, if you will, let's not lead to war," she has a dead son, so it's like, "Eff it, we're going to war."
Well, yeah, because it's a couple of factors, right? It's like, I think this scene is like the shot heard around the world, right?
Mm,
Where, you know, he they sort of foreshadow it, that something's gonna come, and even this girl, Princess Renee's Targaryen, she sort of says, "Look how composed the queen is.
Mhm.
She's trying to be about wholesome, and she's not gonna attack until something really needs to, and there it is. And the problem is gonna happen is she's gonna tell her, well, wait, your father came to my home, told me that my sons were just gonna be holding your king's cup, basically
Mhm.
servants, high
Mhm.
servants.
Mhm. Mhm.
You then I go and try to see if I can just get peace by getting the houses around me and hopefully being able to say, hey, you are a traitor because you went against your husband's wish.
Mhm.
You killed my son, and now you want to tell me that
And now
we're
you
all good.
want parlay. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And I think that pushes her to the edge in the sense of, kind of like, hey, there's no other way to do this. There's no politics that you can sit down at this point, because in her mind, they've always called her kids bastards.
Yeah. True. True. Yeah. The strong family, if you will.
Yeah. Hey,
And it's crazy how they murked the father as well. Like they
well,
really
his own brother murked him
yes,
and the dad.
absolutely.
I was
And the
just
dad,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And Mike, so here's a question, and maybe I missed it,
Mm.
but Sir Leonor's not dead. And does he come back and hear this?
Yeah.
Because remember, she sent them away to kind of a coup to be able to, do what she's did now with aim, with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sorry, with Damon.
With Damon
And
Tucker, yeah.
what if he comes back and he some sort of kind of gets involved in this conflict because he's, hey, you know, I should have been there.
Hmm.
How does he come back into the picture and what drama does he bring? Because remember, they still think that both Damon and Rhaenyra's killed him to get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
what is he
crazy.
playing in the politics of power
Yeah.
and this? Again, they never said he died. They think he's
No,
dead.
they
We
think
know
he's
he's
dead,
not.
but they never actually officially did that. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I didn't think of that. It was just kind of like implied. Oh yeah, he's on. He's off. He's dead. But it wasn't really
And what about Sir Harold?
interesting. Hmm.
Remember, he left. I thought he was gonna get
Yeah, he
killed.
was like, "I'm done." Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought he was gonna get murked right there. Like I thought he
Yeah.
was gonna be like, "Yo, he leaves outside. That's it. They decapitate him."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What role is he gonna play?
Yeah, he was the general, the King's Guard. I mean, you can't just walk around murking that dude. He probably he's probably not easily gotten. So
Yeah.
I did see him walk away. I wonder if he'll still have more of a part to play in the next season to come. He's a great actor. He's one of those actors who's actually a name.
Yes.
Yes, he's one of those, and there are a few of them in there, but he's one of them. He's been in many different things, and people would definitely recognize him. But no, okay, so I guess we can end this show with one final statement. Do you recommend this for someone who A hasn't watched Game of Thrones before, or B has watched Game of Thrones before? Where's your recommend lie?
If you've watched Game of Thrones, I think you're definitely gonna enjoy this because it's more of the history and kind of still takes some of the things that you liked, and I think it takes the best parts that people like.
Mhm.
I think if you're someone new, you can probably get into this without having. I was gonna say no at first because of the way it kind of plays, but I just feel like you said the way this book was built,
Mhm.
you can literally just think of it as another fantasy kind of show that you're getting into and you're learning about it. And what happens, I feel that if you watch it this way, I feel that when you go into Game of Thrones, the first couple of seasons that were really good, I think you'll appreciate more
Yeah,
because you'll
it'll fill
you'll
that
know
back
the
in for you.
conflicts and a lot of
Yeah.
the names that you sort of hear but get
Mhm.
lost because you're
Yep.
like, yeah, such and such. And so I would say even someone that hasn't watched this and wants to kind of see what is this so-called Game of Thrones or House of Dragons, I think you can still recommend it. The only reason I say I wouldn't at first was
Mhm.
because of the way I feel that in some parts it kind of expects you to know some of the backstory that you've seen already from regular Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
it's almost like they know that the audience. Well, they think that the audience that are in
Okay.
here are Game of Thrones watchers,
The, the
which
best the best way to put it
that's
is Halo
presuming too much.
5, where and nothing bad. What I mean is
Uh-huh.
I read the books for Halo and I'm
Mhm.
rich in the lore. And
Yeah.
what Halo 5 and I think the overall storytelling I felt in Halo sometimes is that it assumes too much to the people that you know about them, but
Mm.
only if you've read some of the other parts of the media and that's in the game. But
It
to
expects
an
you
extent,
to have done your homework before you got
correct.
in it. Okay.
But I still think this is not that, but in some senses it does that,
It
and it
did
expects a
goes
lot
in
from
that
its
direction.
viewers.
Okay.
But I think overall, you can still go into this, and I feel that it'll give you kind of the icing and the cherry on the top, I think, when you watch actual Game of Thrones afterwards. Because I felt this is what I was missing when I was watching Game of Thrones. I
Good
wanted
take.
them to
Good
go
take.
back
No,
to a time period.
I completely agree with you. It fills in some back. It fleshes things out, gives you a more complete picture of the characters you like. I agree with you on that. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. Let us let us hit towards the outro. But I have a last question to ask you
Sure.
as our outro, and we'll hit towards the outro right now. I thank everybody for being here. I thank everybody for checking out the show. This is the kind of an offshoot. You know, we'll throw one of these in the mix for you. Maybe we'll throw another one in the mix for you before the show comes back proper. Mrs. Joanna Dark, thank you so much for being here. On your way out, not only do I want you to tell the fine people where they can find you and keep up with your goings on the internet, I know that you know that Gears of War has been announced as a property. Now, as
Oh.
a fan of Gears of War, as I am and as you are, how excited were you to hear that Netflix, of all people, have taken this reign on? And not only are they doing an adult, full-fledged film, where's Dave Bautista? Tell me Dave Bautista's going to be there. I would love it if Dave Bautista's in there. Then they're also doing an adult-themed animated show. So on our way out, we all know I'm going to love this thing. I'm a Gears guy from way back. What are your thoughts, sir?
Wow, it feels like you just gave me a layup. I love Gears of War, and before we go another 2 hours, which I know our wives are killing, I'll say this quick: Bautista as Marcus Phoenix. I was talking to this today.
Mhm.
Give me Terry Crews as the Coltrane.
Oh, it's perfect. Absolutely. You got me. It's over. It's a
So it
wrap.
was between him and Michael Coulter, who played Locke. But I was like,
Yeah.
he doesn't have no personality. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
him, right? Sweet Christmas,
Yeah.
right? That's my favorite line. But I said Terry Crews, and then I don't know as Dom a Hispanic character, but I'm pretty sure that I can come up with, and I just didn't have at the time. But I would definitely love a Hispanic person to play it for the show. Excited.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to do what I hear from the Horizon Forbidden West, right? Where you're getting it before that whole calamity starts. Let's put it the best way I can put it for no spoilers. I
Mm-hmm.
would love them to explore Pendulum Wars and
Mm.
maybe lead you in to what
Into the
happened.
first, into what do they call it? Into Emergence
It-
Day, the first
I
day.
just feel that as a Gears fan,
Yeah.
that world is just ripe with so much lore that you can literally still have these iconic characters and build that thing up and to eventually give you a good story. And I'm excited. I think Bautista, if they're going to do Marcus, he to me he's Marcus. I was saying Dom for the Rock at first.
Mm.
Bautista, Dom for the Rock, and then Terry Crews as the Coltrane, because that's my boy, the Coltrane.
Mm. Yeah, you see, and the thing about Coltrane, he is played by a gentleman by the name of Lester. I think his last name is Spade, Lester Spade. I actually saw him the time I took a picture with Lou Ferrigno
Okay.
from. I also saw Lester at the same Comic Con, the dude who plays Coltrane, and I was like, oh my god, it's Coltrane. I took a picture of him. This is like
Oh, oh man,
2007,
that's awesome.
2007 Comic Con. I was there.
Oh,
I got, yes. So and if I'm not mistaken, Lester is about 59 years old, almost 6. I would love Lester to come back, play the character you played in the game, bro. You did. And he is that character. He just is. He's an ex-football player. He is that bombastic. He's that guy. They just kind of put him in and called him Coltrane. You
then
know?
I mean, I'm put it this way: whatever I can get that is close to if I can get the Coltrane, then let's go.
Yeah. Like
Um,
the Coltrane would be in there just going, woo! You know what I'm
and
talking
then
about? I would be so excited.
if we can get Pong Sol as Beard, then I'll be down
Oh
with
my
that.
God. Yes, yes. Put Pong, so put the glasses on his forehead, call him Baird. Yes, yes,
But
absolutely.
I'm excited. I love Gears. Huge fan.
Mm.
I replay the games over and over because I think it's a great world, and I think it deserves some type of medium where other people can kind of get into the game and and we can explore Sarah, and a
Mhm.
lot of the politics. I think it's just ripe for something like Netflix
Yeah, yeah, I
or any
agree.
type of
I
streaming
agree.
service in general.
And Netflix has done a darn good job of like rehabilitating the image of video game properties. They keep hitting it out the park. So thankfully, and I will say this myself, thankfully Microsoft has realized that hey, maybe we can get the edge runners effect from Netflix if we approach them with
So
one
let
of
me
our
ask you
properties.
about that animation. What do you want to see from that one now? So if we have the live action,
Mhm.
what would you like the animation to do? Would you would you like it to focus on maybe could it be a nice connection into whatever Gears projects that eventually, hopefully one day we'll see? Again, I would think if there's something coming down the road, it would be a nice way because you know how Edge Runners is sort of after
Mhm.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, no, Edge Runners is before.
Before, excuse me.
Is before.
So, would
Yes.
you like to see something in the sense of what they did with Hive Busters, where maybe there's another team that
So
they introduced?
that's what I was about to say. To me, since you have two properties coming out, right? You have the live action and you're doing the animated. I want one of those properties. I don't care which one. I want one of those properties to be filled to the brim with characters I've never met. I don't want to see Cole. I don't want to see Marcus Phoenix. I don't want to see. I don't want to see any of the existing narrative, the existing characters we know in one of the properties because that world itself is so big and so lush and so vibrant that you can just tell different stories in it. I want a Rogue One like story in this world, right? None of the characters but it can still be useful and still be beneficial. Not both of them, right? Make the live action like real. I still say make Batista Phoenix, Marcus Phoenix. I'm there. That'd be awesome.
I
But
loved when they used him in this
mhm,
when you could get the skin of Bautista
for the
and
skin,
play as him.
exactly,
That was so.
exactly, exactly. So
You
yeah,
just
to
look at
me,
Bautista and he's like, "That's Marcus Phoenix."
that's Marcus Phoenix, and he's always been a huge fan. He has been on the picket front like line. He's been holding
You
the
know what I just
sign for a
thought?
long time.
Get John Cena as Beard because of his personality and his whole.
Of course, of course. The three characters, the top characters should be all of them should be ex wrestler slash football players. At that, the necklace, big muscle bound. They definitely because now, as you've already pointed out, there are many characters, many actors who fulfill that and are also very talented in their own right. I really hope they go in that direction. I really do. I am super excited for whatever this eventually becomes.
Yeah, I think we're living in a great time where we're getting to see a lot of the things that we love from so many different avenues kind of been brought to life, and it's just great. From comic books to games to books. Um, I think it's awesome. And just when I saw that news, I had to make sure that it wasn't fake because I didn't want to hit
Yeah,
myself. And I clicked the
absolutely. I
link,
was just like, "What? That's just amazing to
and
me."
I started this long thread at work, and then we just start throwing ideas, and then I finally said, you know what, Terry Crews as the co-train, because Terry Crews is very charismatic, and I
It's
just
true.
loved him in Brooklyn 99, so I
Yep.
could just see
He
him.
could make it. He could definitely do it. 100%. He
Mhm.
has the character, he has the mannerisms. He could knock it out the park.
I mean, we
I'm
already saw him in the
hoping for it.
Crackdown suit, so you just give him.
True. True. Just flip the suit around. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is, man, we could talk for hours just on this story alone. I'm just so excited about the potentials. And why did it take you guys so long to get there? Come on now.
Yeah,
Gears has been primed for this for so long. Batista has been his one-man band for so long saying, make a movie. Come on, put me
mhm,
in it. I'm happy we're here now.
yeah.
Anything else you like to pull off before we end the show?
I'm sorry, say it again, I'm sorry.
Anything anything you'd like to say before we end the show?
No, I mean, thank you so much, for inviting me. It's, I know this is under the Gaming Circle podcast, but I
Mm.
was always a big fan of On the Real and kind of just listening to when I
Indeed,
could with you
indeed,
guys,
yes. Mhm.
talking movies. So it's thank you for inviting me to talk House of Dragons, She-Hulk, and kind of letting me know that I'm definitely gonna enjoy it because of what it is. And overall, just always a great time to talk to you. Too bad Everborn's not here, but
Yeah.
one thing I'll say to Everborn is, don't you wish that people talked with passion? Um, the the way we talk about Gears, they talked about Sonic. No, they don't. But
I knew where you were going with that, sir. I knew it. And before I might still end up losing my bet. Like, let's just be clear here. With Boom, I'm secure. He says 2-1. There's no way that's happening. But Everborn says that Sonic could win in general, like even if it's by one copy against Ragnarok, and that might still happen. So before Christmas ends, I'm just gonna be mum's the word and watch. Because look, Sonic makes a lot of bad games, but they still sell. They make a lot of bad games, but they still sell. So we shall see.
I just, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut too, but I just don't see it. I mean, I would again. It's just, I'm excited. I'm gonna be playing on my Steam Deck because I want to make sure I have it everywhere. But yeah, we'll see. He does need a W. Come on, he
Sonic needs a W. Yes, indeed.
I have a picture I Photoshop, but I haven't sent it to him from his pictures he put up in Disney with his glasses. And I have the Metacritic score. I have the Metacritic score in the back. The look of someone that
you need to post that. I want to see his reaction. You need to post it.
Oh, he knows. I tell him a lot of stuff.
But okay, let us close this episode out as we always do with the outro. Once again, from Mr. Joanna Dark and myself, TK Awasante, thank you guys so much for checking us out. This was our On the Real side, if you will. We didn't use the music proper. We didn't do it proper because Mr. Everborn Saga isn't here. He just had by the luck of the scheduling draw, he didn't happen to be here, but he will be soon enough. But we appreciate you all for definitely checking us out. We will be back. It might be next week because we're still on kind of a little bit of a vacation hiatus. We'll see. I'm trying to get a couple episodes backfilled to put it in there. Might be next week, but if not next week, you will definitely check us out. You'll see us properly, in full force with all the slander that you can expect. Shortly after, we will be back in your ear holes and on the screen for all of your viewing goodness. But until that time, it's been a pleasure having this great conversation with you, Mr. Joanna Dark. Until next week, folks, thank you guys for checking us out, and we will definitely be seeing you again soon. Have a good weekend.